Sports update powered by the Nissan Van range. Supporting van owners to get the job done. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van centre.
With your latest sports headlines, I'm Matt Hutchinson. Craig Bellamy is suggesting changing the way the handball rule is applied here to bring us more in line with how it works abroad. The Wales boss isn't happy about the penalty which allowed Belgium to equalise in Cardiff.
No, that's not sour grapes, far from it. Completely aware of the capabilities of a Belgian team, of course, but I just felt it just interrupted the momentum that we were having.
His side lost 4-2 in the end and will probably need to go through the World Cup playoffs now. Elsewhere, they've got a population the size of Sheffield, but Cape Verde fans can book their tickets for next summer.
I don't realise for the moment. They're just amazing. Like, honestly, I can't explain. It's just a lot of emotion right now. I still don't believe for the moment we're in the World Cup. That's crazy, yeah.
That's Cape Verde defender Steven Moreira, who says qualification still hasn't sunk in. England can book their place with a win in Latvia tonight.
We don't want to get away with the easiest effort or with half the effort. We want to put all the effort in and create then a feeling that it's nice to work as a team and to work hard and to run. And at the moment we are a running team.
Thomas Tuchel is urging his players to give 100% every time they pull on the shirt. The boss also says Marcus Rashford could be one of the world's best forwards, but his goals and assist stats don't yet match his potential. Latvia-England is live on talkSPORT, of course, from 7 p.m. Now, which talkSPORT pundit would make the best referee, do you think? Well, the FA want more ex-pros to wear the black. Meanwhile, former Premier League ref David Coote is expected to appear at Nottingham Crown Court today. He's charged with making an indecent image of a child.
Weather with Quick Fit. Come rain or shine, we've got your electric car covered with 400 EV ready centres, so you can drive away happy every time.
On to your news now, and the government's treatment of trans people could be breaching the European Convention on Human Rights. And a day after the Gaza peace deal was signed, the Israeli military has shot down suspects on the Strip. Amelia's back at past. On to your weather now. We're expecting plenty of cloud today with some sunny spells in Scotland, and spots of drizzle are possible in some eastern areas.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Jim White and Simon Jordan. We're live in talkSPORT. So, as this international window begins to wrap, will it be impossible for UEFA to turn qualifying into an exciting format? Meantime, post Steven Gerrard, are there any other unifying appointments on the Rangers list? Also today, are the West Ham fans mobilising to nothing? Will Sheffield Wednesday become the regulator's poster boy? Ipswich chairman Mark Ashton joins us ahead of the domestic football return. Why was Infantino at the signing of the Israel-Gaza peace deal and amidst the talk of togetherness? Is there anything new about Team England? This is Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT.
100% engagement. Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
Who was it? Russell Crowe, a.k.a. whoever he was in Gladiator. Are you not entertained? We're not really, are we? By what goes on in this international break.
Who was he?
We're not.
Who was the character?
Maximus
Aurelius. No,
Aurelius.
That was the
Decimus.
Emperor. That was the emperor, wasn't it?
No, he was Maximus.
Okay.
Well, he might have been.
What you do in life echoes for eternity.
That's the one.
Indeed.
So, are we not entertained? No, we're not. I mean, the reason I'm asking, Simon,
how do you make it entertaining?
How do you make it entertaining? A huge night of international football.
Yeah.
Said no one ever. When is the last time I've gone on air with you and said, well, I tell you what, this is it. I've got to think back to maybe Berlin. And you and I were on a link, and you were in London, I was in Berlin, England, Spain, the Euros final. I mean, I don't want to do
there is the challenge, isn't
nations, but it's just a bore fest.
But there is the challenge, isn't it? I mean, ultimately, the ultimate attraction is jeopardy.
Yeah.
Having something meaningful and having something seriously competitive. In the qualifying games, forever and a day, with the exception of when England weren't qualifying during the 70s and certainly in the 90s when Graham Taylor had the side, there was very little jeopardy in the qualifiers. There never has been. So, I mean, like the old expression, you can't really put lipstick on a pig, can you? Once you've done it, it still becomes a pig. And the issue is that how do you turn qualifying games into something more meaningful?
Well, exactly.
But the problem again is, do we have an embarrassment of riches? Are we spoilt by the constant pizzazz and sizzle of the Premier League? And now that's overtaken everything, and international football has become a less than.
No, I don't think so. I think we've got to look at who's playing who at a time like this. Even UEFA's woken up to the fact, hang on, we've got to do something about this. They've told a major review of international qualifiers because they recognise there are concerns that fans and broadcasters are losing interest in matches. Now, I'm not surprised at that. Tonight, all due respect to Latvia, and any Latvians listening this morning, good morning, and you're welcome. Latvia, England, 137th is playing England.
Yeah.
Now, they're just ahead of Botswana and Turkmenistan. Yeah. What do you expect?
Okay, so in Latvia, what do you think the reaction is going to be to this?
Oh, this is a big moment. Money, money, money.
So does the world evolve around us? So not just money, 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 money. England come calling, playing Latvia. It's a big thing to them. For us playing Latvia, it's no big thing. So the challenge is, which football is worth more? Which is more valuable? English football, international football for these developing countries that are ultimately wanting to be bigger countries, that have smaller populations, less seeded with football. So we have to get the balance right. Now, what UEFA are doing is playing to the gallery. What is it you're going to do? What are you actually going to change? Are you going to ensure that only the big teams get to the tournaments, which is in part what you're doing now because of the way the seeding goes, or are you going to risk the jeopardy of actually having meaningful qualifiers and then having the big nations not competing in the World Cup and the Euros? So all of a sudden you start pitching Italy or Germany or France or England and Spain against one another in group stages.
Yeah.
One of these big nations goes out and all of a sudden there's a load of hand-wringing and pearl clutching because people can't see them in the tournaments.
You see, the broadcaster tonight is trying to get eyes on this, trying to get eyes on Latvia, England.
Bring the price down.
But then, and it's live in talkSPORT as well, but bear in mind, England have lost only one single qualifying match for a major competition, and that was way back on October the 10th, 2009. And you're right, Simon, it was against Ukraine in Dnipropetrovsk. So there ain't going to be any shock tonight. So what do you do about it? Now, UEFA are saying, yeah, we've got to do something.
We can't do anything, can
We've got to get me. Yeah, they can.
What can they do?
A number of systems are being discussed, including the Nations League tournament as a form of qualification. And that has been a bit more interesting.
Is it?
That does throw... Yeah, you've had bigger nations go into that. Or, and I think this is more of a runner, to use the Swiss model format used in this revamped Champions League format.
Maybe.
And we're all agreed that that's a winner.
You're still going to see crap rubbers, aren't you? You're still going to see teams that are less thans. I mean, I'm sure that no one was excited about playing young boys last year. I'm sure that wasn't, or Go Ahead Eagles. I'm sure they weren't teams that particularly were inviting a load of interest from any of the bigger clubs, so-called bigger clubs. So then you do the same thing in international football. If the format needs to be changed, and we think it provides some degree of reignition, but we're not. If these games had jeopardy attached to them, there wouldn't be any issue around the formats. So it's unfortunately, how do you make up a European competition or a World Cup competition? You have to play less thans. Because if you don't play less thans and you start playing equals, then equals are not going to be in tournaments. And then tournaments are not going to be made up of the best countries in the world. Yeah. And then the broadcast rights will really be worth less.
I see where you're going with it.
So
the Swiss-style model, though, the revamped Champions League, it would see all 55 national teams playing 6 or 8 matches against a range of opponents, based on seeding. Now that's crucially important.
But we've got a range of opponents now in these groups. It just so happens that ultimately England are better than the teams that they're seeded with, and that's one of the benefits of being seeded. It's like saying, well, the first rounds of Wimbledon aren't worth watching because their seeded players are playing nobodies.
So you would just leave it alone?
Well, A, I couldn't care less how much money the broadcasters are making out of it, and B, are the stadiums full?
Will you watch tonight?
No, I think international football is dull. I think I'm with you. I think it's dull. I think the domestic football is so all-encompassing, so entertaining. Well, or accepting for what it is, and ultimately, do we have full stadiums? Making sure that England provide entertainment so that when we're 3-0 up, we don't go to sleep in the second half and blame the crowd. We keep on playing.
Yeah.
We don't worry about the constant battle for player welfare. We put more players out there. I remember growing up as a kid, going to my first ever England game in 1978 to watch Steve Coppell make his debut. And I think Viv Anderson made his debut as the first black player to play for England. And Czechoslovakia wasn't a big game, but I was in a crowd of 80,000 people, however many it was, at Wembley Stadium, packed to the rafters and full of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And I think people are still going to football matches. The attendances are not waning. What's waning is how much the broadcasters can rinse out of it. And if the world is going to turn ultimately on how football, international football, should be run based upon the broadcaster figures, which in part it does, then what is it that we're saying?
Well, look at what UEFA's saying. It is very difficult to find the right formula that keeps some jeopardy for the big nations and is competitive but gives smaller teams opportunities too.
Well, there you are then.
So you're in between a rock and a hard place, really, aren't you? I think if they are going to change it, Simon, I've got to be honest with you, the way they've changed the Champions League has been a success. And if they adopt this,
but was it okay
for these tournament qualifying structures, 55 national teams playing 6 or 8 matches against a range of opponents based on seeding. Seeding's important.
Currently, we think that the Champions League format, and I actually agree with you, and I made the point the other day, a panel thing with Sean Custis and Alison Rudd about the Champions League, and it wasn't just wonderful seeing Martin Odegaard playing for Arsenal, which was Alison's contribution to how good the Champions League was in the conversation. It was actually because there's jeopardy all the way through for the broadcasters. Every rubber has something on it,
right?
So that you can get to the first 8 and know that you're automatically there. You can get to the next 16 and play yourself in playoffs. So actually, all the sides are engaged.
Yeah.
And I get it. But if you're going to play the run to the litters in a league ladder format, where the difference between the clubs is the countries are so vast, you're still going to have the same outcomes. You're still going to have Latvia getting bashed up most weeks, San Marino getting bashed up most games, Belarus getting bashed up, except by your lot, most games. So the reality is, how do you change it?
It'll be seeded better. It'll be seeded better.
Then then the consequence of it will be
you won't play the same team home and away. You wouldn't have to go to Latvia tonight. You've already done them at Wembley.
Fantastic. So the Latvians will miss out on having England play in Latvia, because we don't care about playing them at Wembley, but they damn sure care about us playing them in Skonta or wherever it is, or Riga, wherever their capital is. I bought a player from Skonta, so it's in my mind as a football club. Wasn't that great, actually. But I look at it and say it is what it is, and ultimately you can't have gold in them hills all the time.
No. Should the big nations have to qualify?
Damn right they should.
Should they?
Oh, hang on a second. Why aren't we screaming for the should the big clubs play in a league with its relegation then? Outrage. Confected outrage. Should the big of course they should. How can you have meritocracy in international football if the big nations are only now?
Should you want the major tournaments? Once you get to the USA next summer, correct. The big nations.
Sure.
Jeopardy.
So then, if you put them into a group stage and league ladder stage where there's jeopardy, and then Italy that can't qualify for things these days don't get into the tournament, and a Portugal find themselves getting beaten by Spain, and all of a sudden they're out of the tournament, they won't like that either.
Well, let's put it out there. I mean, I've got a feeling as soon as I step out of this building at lunchtime, I'll get slapped in the face by a pathing Lithuanian or a pathing Latvian. We'll see if that happens. But I mean, the question is this: does international football need reshaping? Yes, and it's not just us saying that. It's not just me saying that. UEFA are saying it. It's very difficult to find the right formula that keeps some jeopardy for the big nations and is competitive but gives smaller teams opportunities as well. And that's why UEFA is holding a major review of international qualifiers. If you are at the top of the house in UEFA, and my goodness, whoever you are, you might be better than some of the people who are there at the moment. What would you do to make these qualifiers more interesting, to make the qualifying structure, the campaign more interesting?
But this is not about the good of the game. This is not, because on one hand, FIFA and UEFA are constantly saying, spread the word around the world, ensure that the tournaments get bigger, put more tournaments put more teams into the tournament so that we can widen the net of football. On the other hand, now we're talking about doing it slightly different, and the reason being, and the only reason, let's be clear, the financial returns. Yeah. The only reason UEFA have woken up and gone, that don't smell so good, is because the broadcasters are going, hang on a second, these numbers aren't quite where we want them to be, and maybe we're going to start paying less for broadcast rights for the qualifiers. That's all that's in that conversation. That's all there is.
That's a good point. I mean, as I said, one suggestion might be the new look Champions League format. Could this work for the format for qualifying for a World Cup? Would that be the way to do it? And then that would see all 55 national teams playing 6 or 8 games against a range of opponents based on seeding. England might have to play Latvia, yes, but you wouldn't have to go and play them away as you're doing tonight. Who knows? Maybe this is going to be Latvia's night. And nobody more than me would rush down to the studio to be on air with Lord Jordan tomorrow at 10 o'clock
And
live.
there's where it comes from.
But 137th in the world up against England tonight. There's only going to be one result, isn't there? And it ain't going to be a Latvia win. What do you think? Give us a call. 03717 223344 81089. Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday morning, Tuesday, October the 14th. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT. We're going to get in about the Rangers situation very soon because domestic football is back. Who are Rangers going to have in the home dugout once it does come back? I think they're up against Dundee United this weekend. Who will be looking after the team now that Steven Gerrard has said a polite no? It's been widely reported. Simon, had a brief chat on my way in with Ali there. And if Ali was asked to go in some shape or form, would he do it? Yes, Ali McCoist would do it. Just before we go back to the international subject,
would he do it in his pyjamas, do team talks from his bedroom?
That would remain to be seen, but certainly it would be a very popular appointment, even if it was an interim basis appointment, Ali going back in there. In the passing, have you somewhat gone full circle? In that if Rafa Benitez was paid what Rafa Benitez would like to be paid and goes in there, you would think, yeah, I give that the thumbs up.
Well, I've never disputed the fact that Rafa Benitez is a very good manager. I've disliked, as I told him, the manner in which he conducted himself with the media and the manner in which he played the fans against the owner. If you don't like the owner, don't work for him. Then have some more integrity about it. And that was a discussion that he and I had at the airport that you witnessed.
Yes,
as far as a manager is concerned, he is, to me, just one level off the elite guys. Just a tiny notch off the top guys at the top table. So he's on the top table, but maybe sitting on a little poof next to it.
This is Rafa.
Yeah. So if you're sitting there with an ambition for a football club, and the cheapest money you pay is what you actually buy the football club in the first place,
yeah,
then you need to make grown-up decisions. It's like the poem If, isn't it? When all those around you lose their head, if you can keep yours, then you'll make decisions that are right. Now, they don't need to listen to the background noise. They've got to make the right appointments. So running to populist appointments, whether it's Ali McCoist or it's Barry Ferguson, is not the blueprint of grown-up thinking. It might get you a few brownie ticks with the people instantaneously, but in the longer game, you're running a serious football club that requires serious decisions made by serious people.
Was Russell Martin grown-up thinking?
Well, they devolved the decision-making process to other people. You know, and those people have had their 15 minutes, right? So they've got to step in, the owners now,
right,
and start making decisions about the well-being of their football club. So it means that someone like Benitez, if you want a top manager to seed the rebuilding of Rangers properly, to really reinsert Rangers amongst the rivalry of Celtic, rather than always being an also-ran to them for once in the last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, then maybe a manager like Benitez has got to be brought in for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Paid £4 or £5 million a year, because you can well afford it if you choose to, and then build the football club back to a standard where it's a proper Rangers now, not a Rangers that's always grasping at the coattails of Celtic.
Well, once we get through this international football chat, Alex Crook will join us and we'll tell you who's in the frame. The names in the frame as we understand them to be. Maybe one of them is a former Manchester United player who got the winner in the Nou Camp all these years ago. We'll see. We'll get to that. But UEFA said to be holding a major review of international qualifiers amid concern, and they're concerned, but amid concern that fans and broadcasters at this stage in a qualifying campaign for the World Cup are losing interest in the matches. So what do you do? What do you do to get the interest back in the qualifying campaigns at this particular time? Because Latvia, England tonight, yes, it's Latvia, England tonight, but it's 137th in the world against England, and we pretty much know the outcome. Tom is a big Leeds fan, maybe an England fan too, for all I know. Tom, how do you make this campaign a bit more exciting for the viewer?
Morning, gents. So I think what they should do, I think they should have bigger groups, and then they should basically make the top teams, 2 of them be in each group. So at least that way, France might play Spain, England might play Germany, you know. Because if you look at the groups now, if you look at all the groups for qualifiers, I mean, Germany are in one group, you've got Spain in one group, France in one group. They're all in a group with people underneath that they're going to beat.
Yes.
And even at the start of the process, you know who's going to finish first. So I think that if they did it with more teams in each group, and then put basically 2 of the top teams in each group, they have to play each other. So at least it makes it a bit more interesting, because the argument is clearly there. You know, they want the teams in the competition, so they're not going to stick France, Germany, England and Spain in the same qualifying.
Sure,
even though it'd be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, no, Tom, I think you're onto something. I mean, this thing that's been muted, the 55 national teams playing 6 or 8 matches against a range of opponents based on seeding, that seems a good idea to me. The Swiss model.
Yeah, I guess it does. I mean, I think there's a million other ways they could do it, but I think that whatever way they do it, it won't be perfect, but the Swiss model does sound like it'll make a bit of sense.
Okay.
Just before I go, I wanted to just say one thing to you. The person you were looking for was Maximus Decius Meridius.
Well done.
When you were talking about
Thank you.
So I remembered it. But you should have rang Daniel Dubois because he remembered it when he beat AJ in the ring. Are you not entertained?
Very good.
Tom, thank you very much indeed for that. Sebastian's a big Liverpool fan. Sebastian, how do you make World Cup qualifying more exciting?
Well, this is a bit of a far-out sort of thought, really, but I was having a listen this morning and I was thinking, why not introduce a sort of handicap? So other sports have handicaps. Why not sort of introduce a handicap where, say, for example, the highest seeded team can only field maybe 5 first-team club players? I don't know. It will give the opportunity to the players who are perhaps looking for England caps to play for England.
I'm not sure.
Side.
Are we that desperate that you're making a nation field a weaker team? That's what it sounds like to me.
I said it was far out. I'm just thinking, it sort of keeps things interesting. Perhaps gives the lower seeded team an opportunity. Gives the players that have maybe not played as often for England the opportunity to play for England.
No, it's something to be considered. Thank you for that. Michael, before we go, we'll speak to you. Michael is a Morecambe fan. I think he joins us live. Michael, good morning. How do you make it more interesting?
Morning, Jim. Morning, Simon.
Morning.
I think just really what you were talking about before with the Champions League style format that we've got now. And I know Simon mentioned that the likes of Latvia would miss out on the England game potentially tonight. But they would get somebody else, because if you think about, I forget the name of them now, but the team that recently beat Celtic and knocked them out of the Champions League, although they've got to go to Arsenal, they did get Real Madrid.
Yes.
They did get Real Madrid attend, away to them. So that format by a couple of the top seeds going to these teams, they're probably going to get more bigger nations attending their stadiums, actually, which will obviously benefit them. But they're also going to get the opportunity to play teams in and around them rather than just be that bottom team in a group of 5.
All right, Michael, listen, thanks for that.
I think you'd probably get...
to me, Simon, the Swiss-style format is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, we could handicap the England team by, say, playing them at Anfield and playing the national anthem and let all the Scousers boo it. That would be a handicap, wouldn't it? But yeah, I mean, look, I'm not drunk on the idea that it's as bereft of interest as others are. I mean, I know I'm not watching it, but notwithstanding it, there's lots of people that are. And the driving force behind this change is not our well-being. It's not. It's the broadcasters' well-being, and of course, the two things are inextricably indexed, because we all know that broadcasters are now funding football and calling the shots on when it gets played and who it gets played by. So there is an element of it is what it is, Simon. Get over it. But I'm not averse to any kind of change, as long as the change isn't for just change for change's sake. If it evolves the games and it creates a better landscape for international football, it doesn't alter the landscape of people. We're constantly seeing FIFA and UEFA expanding tournaments, throwing lesser teams in because it's their idea that ultimately they're going to increase the football landscape. Really what it means is they can sell more broadcast rates to other countries around the world that will now participate in World Cup competitions or UEFA competitions. We are always going to have the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
It's like having the FA Cup and playing against the minnows. That doesn't seem to disenfranchise people.
Well, I think on this occasion, now that UEFA are saying, hang on, we might have to implement a change here, I think something is amiss, and they've recognised that fact, so we'll see if they tinker about with it in future. The Champions League is better today than it was before, so maybe they'll do the same with a qualifying campaign. We'll keep an eye on it. Thanks to everybody who's calling in. I see the number of calls, but we have to move on as we're at 10:30. Who's going to get the Rangers job? Who wants it? We'll get into that shortly.
Craig Bellamy is suggesting changing the way the handball rule is applied in the UK to get in line with how it works abroad.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe we need to do a little bit something different over here because they're not our rules. We go more common sense. I don't know where you're supposed to put your hands, but if it goes anywhere near your hands, then it's straight away a pen, which I don't believe is the way the game should be.
Wales went 1-0 up but lost 4-2 at home to Belgium. The boss says his team lost momentum after that handball penalty. The Welsh are probably looking at the World Cup playoffs after that defeat. Now, there'll be a few sore heads in Cape Verde today.
Since I was a little boy, and I know it's the same for the guys in the dressing room, since we were all little kids playing football, we dreamed of playing football at the highest stage, and there's no bigger stage than the World Cup.
That's Cape Verde and Shamrock Rovers centre-half Roberto Lopez after the island nation became the second smallest country to ever qualify for a World Cup. Meanwhile, England can book their place tonight with a win in Latvia. Thomas Tuchel is challenging Marcus Rashford to not waste his world-class talent and add more goals to his game. The boss is also asking the whole squad to leave everything out there.
We want to make our fans proud, and we want to make ourselves happy when we're in the dressing room. We want to sweat, be tired. No one has to be ashamed of being tired. It's a good thing.
Latvia England is live on talkSPORT from 7 p.m.
Good morning, everybody. Tuesday morning. Thanks to everybody for getting in touch already this morning. We're only half an hour in, but that's what we're like. 81089 if you want to send a message or two, and I will read as many out as I can. In the meantime, we're dwelling on the situation at Rangers north of the border, and we had Paul Gascoigne, former Rangers player, former Rangers favourite, in here yesterday. And my God, what a reaction that got. I wonder who Gazza would like to see in place at Rangers now that Steven Gerrard is no longer a candidate. Incidentally, in the passing, happy birthday to Sir David Murray, former chairman and owner. He is 74 today. Happy birthday to you, Sir David.
We met his sons the other day, didn't we?
We met his sons the other day in Glasgow,
boys, yeah.
Simon. Yeah, that's right. So what are Rangers now going to do, Simon? They're up against it in terms of time, and I think in terms of personnel as well. Now that Gerrard is no longer a candidate, former Sheffield Wednesday boss Danny Role has already held talks about replacing the sacked Russell Martin. Sources have confirmed to talkSPORT that the Glasgow Giants still have multiple names on their shortlist. Maybe Kevin Muscat, former player, is one. Maybe Derek McInnes, now of Hearts, is another. He's said to be appreciated. It's nice to be appreciated, isn't it? Alex Crook, talkSPORT said, chief football correspondent, is right across this and joins us live. Alex, where are we at with it at the moment? Because the clock's ticking and domestic football, including Rangers, are back this weekend.
Yeah, good morning, Jim. Good morning, Simon. It feels like a bit of a mess at this moment in time, doesn't it? 9 days since Rangers made the decision to part company with Russell Martin. Obviously, it's been a really poor start to the season. They were a long way down the line with a potential return for Steven Gerrard. In fact, he'd gone as far as sounding out the likes of Gary McAllister to join his backroom team at Ibrox. Obviously, in the end, they couldn't get that deal over the line. I think there's a tax issue that is still hanging over Steven Gerrard from his time in Saudi Arabia, and ultimately that was a hurdle that neither party could overcome. Then you talk about potential replacements, as you've mentioned there, Jim. Danny Roll has met with the Rangers board. I'm told that the hierarchy are pretty impressed with the former Sheffield Wednesday manager, but they are still sounding out other potential options. Kevin Muscat, I think, is a fascinating candidate. He was a treble winner at Rangers as a player. There is a groundswell of support for him amongst the Rangers fan base on social media, that is for sure. But he's managing in China at this moment in time. And I think they've got 4 games of their domestic season left, on the verge of potentially winning the Chinese title. So I don't think it's a guarantee that he will walk out on that project right now. Does that bring into play a possible interim manager? Slaven Bilic is someone else who I know has been put forward to the Rangers board. But the fact, as you say, domestic football returns this weekend. They've got a big game against Dundee United. And at the moment, when their international players return to training, it's the under-19 coach Stephen Smith who is going to be leading those training sessions. Now, no disrespect at all to Stephen Smith. Is that really a situation that a club of the size and stature of Rangers should be finding themselves in? Surely, having made that call to sack Russell Martin, I think we all saw that the writing was on the wall. They should have had a replacement ready to go, should they not?
Well, you would think so. Alex, let's dwell on this. Paul Scholes hinted last night that a former Manchester United player might well be in the frame, and that name is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I don't know where anyone is going with this. Is anyone going anywhere with that?
Well, that's certainly not a name that has been mentioned to me by sources at Rangers. I did see the interview that Paul Scholes did, and it was pretty clear he was alluding to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Again, I'm not sure how that would go down with the Rangers supporters. I know Simon is of the belief that despite the fact he did well initially at Old Trafford, actually Ole Gunnar Solskjaer arguably set Manchester United on a backwards trajectory. He's just lost his job in Turkey. Again, is he guaranteed to bring the glory days back to Ibrox? I'm not sure any of the candidates we're talking about are nailed on to bring the glory days back to Ibrox, but that would be a big risk.
Yeah. Simon, I mean, the names are in the frame, as they always are.
Yeah.
Would you go in the direction of Kevin Muscat?
Well, I mean, I knew Kevin as a player when he was at Millwall, and he was a head the ball, wasn't he? He was a nut job in lots of ways. But that's a playing perspective. So when I knew him at the time, he was a volatile character. I knew certain aspects of the challenges he had in situations at Millwall because of Theo, and there was real issues between him and another player. But the performance of Kevin Muscat as a manager has to be looked at in isolation because he's managed the same team that Ange Postecoglou has managed. And before Ange Postecoglou got the Celtic job, he managed the same team that Kevin Muscat is now managing, and to a lesser degree with less returns than Ange does. So if Ange's credentials was considered to be something significant for Celtic, then why wouldn't Kevin Muscat's? You've got the relationship, the link. I don't think you should make appointments of managers to run your football club based upon the fact that they once kicked the ball for you. I think that's silly. That's playing to a gallery, and that's trying to create an opinion that is not necessarily based upon the characteristics or talent of an individual. But given the fact that Kevin now is deploying his trade in the dugout and deploying it to a level of success, then he might well be something. And I mustn't let my biases of what I saw him like as a player influence my thinking of him as a manager, because if you judged Jurgen Klopp as a player, you'd never think he was going to be a manager, would you? For different reasons. Arsene Wenger, you'd never think, if you judged his footballing career as a player against his managerial career, for different reasons, calmer and more lucid than Kevin Muscat was as a player. So if you're looking at his record and saying, well, if it was good enough for Celtic to take Ange Postecoglou into their dugout 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, then why wouldn't it be good enough given he's managed the same teams?
Well, I think only yesterday, Simon, Alex will come back to you in a second. Did you not hint, Simon, that maybe the current ownership, the interviewers at the club couldn't sell the job to Steven Gerrard? So,
well, I mean, in part, yeah.
Do Rangers as a club need to be sold to anyone?
Well, of course, to some extent they do. Because they're broken at the moment, and ultimately, if people want to take on a challenge of a big club, whilst it's appealing in one respect, it comes with its challenges. Shirt's heavy, fan base is disenfranchised, the squad doesn't look particularly great, and the ownership model seems, I thought initially, doesn't get it. And maybe it's not that they don't get it, they just can't sell it. And that's the problem they've got right now, where they can't sell it to the Rangers fans what their vision is, and they can't sell it to managers. So there's a challenge there. And they're sitting in a room, they must have known, everybody would have known that Gerrard's going to be sitting there going, well, I've got a tax situation. So all your football career was defined by money, Stephen, is it? That's an easy thing for me to say, but you went to Saudi for money. And if you've got to pay a bit of tax on that, oh dear, sorry about that, mate. I think you've made a few quid anyway. I thought you wanted to be a manager. Oh, I only want to be a manager when it suits me economically. Oh, fantastic. Okay, it's part of the equation, but it shouldn't be the only part. But they must have known that going in. So if they wanted to resolve the situation, if they have to pay 10 million quid to Steven Gerrard's tax bill. So what? If you believe he's the man, is the 10 million quid that you're going to spend on his tax bill something that's going to be paid back to you in spades if you're able to generate a team that actually increases the inherent worth of the football club that you bought, because you didn't buy it for love. You didn't buy Rangers because you love Glasgow. You bought Rangers because it's a sports franchise to go in the mix of sporting businesses that you own to enhance your opportunity.
Right.
So why wouldn't you take, if indeed Gerrard was the man you wanted, the necessary prerequisite steps to be able to either find a halfway house or to get it done? If you go into a room and you make the world know that you're going to talk to Steven Gerrard, the best thing you can do is come out of that room with that fella managing your team, rather than all of this adverse blowback as, these guys can't sell it.
Yeah.
But going to the Muscat question, if you actually distill it down, there's a case for Kevin. Because, as I said, Postecoglou managed the same side with lesser returns.
Is there a case for Benitez, who you think is one level below elite?
I do. Despite
if you
the
want to
fact
pay him what he gets.
Despite the fact I filled him in a few times, it doesn't mean I don't think he's not a good manager.
Yeah.
And I think that Rangers are the owners of Rangers are either wanting to be serious fellas. Okay, what is the returns for winning in the Scottish League? Not a lot. But Rangers is a big football club, so it's not about winning just the Scottish Premier League. It's about their standard in world football, the economic value of that, and of course their participation in European football. And Benitez is at a high level. I know he's stank it out a little bit of Celta Vigo, but notwithstanding that, he is a top draw man, and the noise that would make. So,
Alex, you get the impression though that they're still not in any great rush.
No, I'm told it could still take a few more days as yet, and actually there's no guarantee they'll have a permanent manager in place by the weekend, which I think will be really disappointing for Rangers fans. I think you do have to ask the question now as well, and Simon's alluded to it. There's a lot of heat coming on the chief executive, Patrick Stewart, and in particular the sporting director, Kevin Felwell, because as well as that tax issue that we've talked about, I think maybe Steven Gerrard had concerns about working under that hierarchy. So you do have to ask the question, is this as attractive a job as it once was? And is there confidence in the people at boardroom level that when they're speaking to these candidates, that there is a way to turn this ship around? Because it's been such a bad start to the season, isn't it? And you've got Celtic in a situation where they've got plenty of cash in the bank and they don't feel the need to spend it because I think Rangers are at such a low ebb.
Alex, thanks very much indeed. You're smiling.
I'm laughing at Alex's analysis. I mean, look, it's very easy to say what people aren't. I mean, we bumped into the old Rangers board the other day who took exception to me apparently calling him thick, which I'd never had done. But the fact
is, we would go into the one restaurant in Glasgow where there were a number of individuals, one of whom Simon had insulted.
I had not insulted, but the fact is that I have made lots of mistakes and I learnt a lot of lessons. And the people that actually are the people that should make decisions are people that have made good decisions and bad decisions and know what both of them look like. And I look at these guys and there's nothing about it. And I know this is a sort of an antiquated or a colloquialism, but my nose tells me that both of these guys that are in this situation of influence aren't up to it. They aren't up to it.
Straight out the blocks, who would you employ?
As a manager?
No.
Well, I've told you. I've told you who I would consider in the conversation. And I'll tell you what I would have done, with due respect. If I was in that situation, easy said and done, but Gerrard was the man I wanted, and I've made a big song and dance about it, and made sure everyone in the media knew that I was seeing him.
So you'd make it work?
He'd have come out as my manager. Because I wouldn't have gone into the room, or they wouldn't have known I was seeing him. Either which way, I would have come out with an outcome which suited me best, which is A, you don't know I've seen him and I don't want him.
Right.
Or B, you do know I've seen him and I've got him.
Unexpectedly, that hasn't happened. Who'd you go for?
Well, again, the questions abound. If it's easy for me to say Benitez,
you go for Rafa.
I like the idea of it, but I would also believe me. If Rangers come knocking for Kevin Muscat, who cares about the last 4 games in the Japanese league? He'll be over here if Rangers want Muscat.
With all due respect, is it the Chinese league? I think it is.
Well, whatever league it is, it's not Glasgow Rangers.
We'll keep at it. We'll keep agitating to find out if we can find out who is top of the list. And when we know, you'll know. We're coming up to 10 to 11 this Tuesday morning. Jim White and Simon Jordan live in talkSPORT. Of course, we occasionally move away from the world of football. We're going to do that as of this moment. Are we about to welcome back Christian Horner to F1 via Ferrari? It's understood Christian Horner's in talks with Ferrari about taking over as their team principal. We know that last month Horner formally left Red Bull after agreeing a severance deal following his sacking in July. It's reported he left the sport with a payoff in the neighbourhood of £52 million, which in anyone's terms is a very nice neighbourhood. Let's find out more. Editor-in-Chief of Autosport is Rebecca Clancy. Rebecca, good morning to you. Horner coming back into Ferrari. Is this happening?
Good morning, Jim. No, I'm not buying it, I'm afraid. It's a nice story, isn't it? But I think we know that Horner or someone from Horner's team is ringing up all of the different F1 teams at the moment. Andy Cowell, who's the team principal over at Aston Martin, he actually came out and said, yes, there's been a phone call. He's very close with Lawrence Stroll, who owns that team, so they've been chatting. Ao Komatsu, the team principal at Haas, also came out and said, yep, we've been contacted by Horner and his team as well. So it's one of those stories where you can't say it's not true, but I would be surprised if we saw Horner go to Ferrari. Also, if nothing else, because I could not imagine Christian Horner being the boss of Lewis Hamilton, who currently drives for Ferrari.
It seems to me, Rebecca, and Simon will come into this in a second, that he clearly doesn't want to be away from the sport too long.
No, and I think you're absolutely right. And I think one of the things that has been accurately reported is that he did a bit of a deal. It's, as you say, 52 million. It's a very nice sum of money. For most people, they would happily retire.
Yeah.
But it's fair to say that Horner didn't like how things ended with Red Bull. It was very unceremonious. It was just after the British Grand Prix, the Tuesday after the British Grand Prix. It was a shock to him. To be honest, it was a bit of a shock to everyone, the timing of it. Obviously, there had been these allegations the previous year, about 18 months earlier. Nothing seemed to have come from that. He seemed to have survived those. And then, yeah, he was let go in July. So he's done a deal with Red Bull, which effectively lets him come back into the paddock next spring, early next spring, and he wants to. He really wants back in F1. He loves it. So as well as these reports about him going back into Ferrari, we also know that there have been reports about him setting up his own team. So we have Cadillac coming in next year. That will be the 11th team. And under the regulations, there is scope for a 12th team. It is not cheap. His 52 million is but peanuts. It's not enough, amazingly. So he'd need to find some investors, some backers. Not completely unlikely. It is possible. We've seen, as I said, Cadillac got the green light, although they had to jump through quite a few hoops to get there. So I think we will definitely see Horner back in F1 in some capacity. I'm not convinced it will be Ferrari.
And Rebecca, if he does come back, would he be welcome back?
Do you know what? I think he actually would. It's funny when you listen to Toto Wolff, the team principal over at Mercedes. Those two had a proper rivalry. There were war of words. It all stems from that season in 2021 where they were, up against each other. It was Max Verstappen's Red Bull up against Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes. It obviously ended in a cloud of controversy in Abu Dhabi. But throughout that season, they were absolutely going for each other through the media. They didn't hold back, and that rivalry has continued ever since. And actually, when you speak to Toto Wolff since July, he says, the sport does miss a bit the grenade throwing that they were doing, as we would call it. That kind of just a bit more exciting. Now we're seeing team principals, they're more engineering side rather than the likes of Horner and Wolff, who are marketeers. They do very good at doing the PR for their team. Don't necessarily get involved with the day-to-day of the engineering side of it. So yeah, I think the sport actually has missed Horner to a degree, in the sense of just, he was front page news. He wasn't just back page news. And I think he might not necessarily be welcomed back by everybody with open arms, but I think there'd be a few faces who'd be happy to see him.
Simon, certainly when he joined us in studio last December, we put it to Christian Horner, and have a listen to this, Rebecca. I put it to him, where was his passion for the sport?
I still get a buzz that I had when I started this role, over 20 years ago. So that moment when the lights go out and it's just you and your team and your drivers, for me, that is the biggest, the buzz that you can that you can get out of the sport. And what you've still got, it's down to the passion at the end of the day. If you love what you do, you do it that bit better.
52 million more in the bank for him. That's nice, but he still can't live without it, it would appear, Simon.
Well, yeah, I guess so. That's the nature of the beast. I was going to ask Rebecca the principal thought processes behind how he's viewed in F1 by all the protagonists, not just necessarily the media, but the actual teams themselves. And you made an observation that maybe I should know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You alluded to the fact that you can't see him at Ferrari because you can't see him working with Lewis Hamilton. Why is that?
So that stems back to the 21 season that I was just talking about, where things got pretty nasty between Mercedes, where Lewis was at the time, and Red Bull, where Christian Horner was the team principal. And there was a lot of bad blood. I'm not sure Mercedes or anyone at Mercedes has really gotten over the result from Abu Dhabi in 2021, including Lewis himself. Understandably, it was human error from the race director, which meant he didn't win his 8th World Championship. Ferrari are not performing well now, which is where a lot of this speculation has come from, that perhaps Christian Horner could come in. He was very successful in his 20 years. He won 6 Constructors' Championships. He won 8 Drivers' Championships. But I think there's just too much bad blood between Hamilton and, not necessarily Horner as in personally, but I think between Red Bull and Mercedes, I just don't think that relationship would work at all.
If you were putting your smart money on where you think he might land, where do you think it might land? Because it feels, the suggestion you made with the Cadillac, it feels like the Beckham effect over the next expansion team in American football. Beckham didn't put any money in, but he utilised the fact that he had an expansion opportunity. Cadillac aligning themselves with a well-known, reputed team principal feels like a fit, doesn't it?
He absolutely won't be going to Cadillac.
He won't be.
That is not happening. They've come out very clearly and said he won't be going to Cadillac. I think the most likely place we could see him, perhaps Aston Martin, as I mentioned. Andy Cowell said that he had spoken to Lawrence Stroll, the owner there at Aston Martin, and they're close friends. So that's
have they got any money, Aston Martin?
Lawrence Stroll is a very, very, very rich billionaire. So yes, with very deep pockets. They've just spent a huge amount of money on their factory in Silverstone. They've also just acquired Adrian Newey, the greatest car designer in F1 history, who worked with Christian Horner at Red Bull. So that would be those two reuniting. And the other option, which I would probably put top at the moment, is Alpine. So currently that's Flavio Briatore, who himself has been wrapped up in scandal in the sports, but is very close to Horner. They are in a bit of a tricky period at the moment, back of the grid. They have a team manager, not necessarily a team principal, in Steve Nielsen. I think Horner could fit in well to Alpine. And also Alpine, despite being a French team, their factory is based in England, not that far from Horner's house. So it wouldn't even be that much of a change for him.
Rebecca, thank you so much. Rebecca Clancy, editor-in-chief of Autosport. So clearly the message is, not only is he set to come back, he might well have a bunch of choices, Christian Horner, in the process. That's even after he put 52 million in the bank for saying goodbye to Red Bull. I'd love the opportunity to do that. It's 11 o'clock.
talkSPORT Sports Update, powered by the Nissan Van Range. Commercial vehicles that go the distance for your business. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
With your latest headlines, I'm Matt Hutchinson. Some breaking news. David Coote has pleaded guilty to making an indecent image of a child. The former Premier League referee has just appeared at Nottingham Crown Court. Head to talksport.com for more details over the next hour. Elsewhere this morning, Thomas Tuchel is challenging Marcus Rashford to add more goals and assists to his game. The England boss is urging the forward to not waste what he calls world-class talent. Adrian Durham rates Tuchel, making it clear he wants more from his players.
He knows that his job is to win the World Cup, OK? And if he doesn't, he's failed because he's been brought in to go one step further than Gareth Southgate, and he's going about it in the way he feels will get the best out of all the players who are going to be involved in that World Cup.
You can hear England in Latvia live on talkSPORT from 7 tonight. Craig Bellamy is suggesting changing the way the handball rule is applied in the UK to get it in line with how it works abroad. The Wales boss isn't happy about the penalty which allowed Belgium to equalise last night. The visitors ended up winning 4-2 in Cardiff. Northern Ireland are also recovering from a tough result to quality opposition, losing 1-0 to Germany at Windsor Park. But boss Michael O'Neill says all is not lost.
Probably 4 points will give us a real chance of second place in the group in a playoff. And really at the outset, that was our target. You know, when you're drawn in a group of 4 with Germany, you don't really expect to be able to finish above Germany.
But one team which has qualified for North America is Cape Verde. The island nation is the second smallest country to ever make a World Cup finals.
talkSPORT News.
Could the UK's treatment of trans people actually be breaching European human rights? And Israel's military has killed 3 people in Gaza despite Donald Trump's peace deal being signed off yesterday. More from the news team at past.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. With over 600 centres across the UK, most of which open 7 days a week, we're always there when you need us. QuickFit. Drive away happy every time.
Sadly, we're expecting plenty of cloud today with spots of drizzle possible in some eastern areas, but some sunny spells are forecast up in Scotland.
Good morning, everybody. It has just gone 11 o'clock this Tuesday morning. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan. We are live on talkSPORT. Domestic football coming back this coming weekend following this international break. Latvia are the hosts tonight for England. We'll see how Thomas Tuchel's England get on over there. In the meantime, various questions coming out from our end here this morning. Are the West Ham fans mobilising to nothing? And elsewhere, why was Gianni Infantino at the signing of the Israel-Gaza peace deal yesterday? What was he doing there when we're always assured that sport and politics really shouldn't mix? Anyway, we'll get to that. We're dwelling on this. Is Sheffield Wednesday going to become the poster boy and acid test for the independent regulator? The chair of the independent regulator, David Cogan, sat down with talkSPORT Sunday edition host Henry Winter and discussed the situation at trouble-torn Sheffield Wednesday.
I think you can assume that, I am spending a substantial amount of time, as are my colleagues, talking to supporters groups, talking to the EFL, talking to the politicians, obviously, who are involved in this as well. Secretary of State said at the Select Committee, I think, change is coming. Anybody who's looked at our first round of consultations from 4 weeks ago can see it was very clearly aimed at existing owners. We now need to wait for the process to unveil through the House of Commons, and change is coming. Sheffield Wednesday is not simply a club that is in difficulty. Sheffield Wednesday is a fundamental part of the fabric of football in this country. Clearly, anybody who's interested in football, certainly the chair of the IFR, has a direct interest in ensuring that Sheffield Wednesday is given as much protection as possible. But I have to work within the powers that I've got and when I get them, and that's what we're now working on.
So what do we know? We know that Sheffield Wednesday have failed to pay their players on time on 5 separate occasions and have been hit with separate EFL embargoes. When we get in touch with them, and I can assure you we do, the owner, Mr. Daifon Chansiri, tells me very politely to speak to the football club, and he doesn't really want to speak directly on the matter. John Textor, and we know John Textor, of course, he of multi-club ownership, the man formerly of Crystal Palace. He was speaking to an old colleague of mine at Sky, Alan Myers, on his potential interest on Sheffield Wednesday.
I hate to say anything controversial to the fans, but the owner, at least in my experience with him, has been very open to ideas. I've had a little bit of interaction, some direct. I know he's very concerned about the club. I know it may not look like it. What changes he's had in his life that have led to this separation between, his future and the club's future. I don't want to comment on that. I will say that, more recently I've been pleased by their open-mindedness to talk about ideas. I would say it's just really complicated. Wednesday is one of the clubs that we're looking at. It's not that I wouldn't love to come in tomorrow, but they're in a very difficult situation. I think it's been a bit overstated, the extent to which we are involved in that situation. We're one of, I think, 3 or 4 groups that are getting an appropriate amount of open-mindedness from the owner.
So maybe Texter's having a nibble, and we'll see where that takes him. Joining us in the studio is football finance and legal expert Stefan Borsten. Stefan, I know you're across this situation. You might be able to throw some new information at us. What are you hearing?
Well, look, it's I think a deeply complex situation, and it's not getting any easier with the noise that's there from fans, politicians, mentioned by David Cogan, the IFR that's going to get busy quite soon.
The IFR?
Independent Football Regulator.
Yeah, of course.
So, and you know, they're gonna really focus in on Sheffield Wednesday because, of course, it's going to, I think, be a poster child for them in terms of the new powers that they've got, and really the situation that they can't afford to let something bad happen to Sheffield Wednesday under their new watch. But of course, Sheffield Wednesday is probably the biggest club that's been in financial difficulty of this extent over the years. And for a regulator to come in and make a difference is going to need some cash. And the big question, of course, is if they want to use some of those powers to put pressure on the owner, and remember, the owner's already under all sorts of pressure. He's got 6 embargoes from the EFL. He's got every fan group around speaking to the IFR and speaking to the press and trying to apply pressure to encourage a sale, which of course is already in process. If they could find a buyer, they would find one. So there's a lot of pressure building on the ownership. But the reality is, ultimately, if the independent football regulator wants to take control of the situation, then somebody's going to have to fund it. And if the owner is not prepared to fund it, that leaves the question as to who is going to fund it.
To fund it, in other words, take the baton that's handed to
them.
them.
The players are not being paid.
And then pay the players, something that Chansiri has not been doing.
Well, it's not just
the staff.
Sure, I mean, it's not just.
I mean, you say it's going to get busy. What does that look like?
Well, the big surprise, I think, for many people when they actually explore the independent football regulator is the independent football regulator has a lot of power. Okay, so there is a process by which...
Such as?
Well, they can put in place their own expert, effectively, to run the club for areas that they think the current owner is deficient in. But, of course, it always comes down to cash. These are loss-making businesses. Almost all football clubs are loss-making businesses and require money to be put in by the ownership. Now, if they're going to put the current owner out of bounds as somebody that they say is not a suitable person to run the club, then they've got to have an alternative in terms of funding. And that's going to be the big question. Who is going to fund a situation where the IFR puts the current owner out of the situation?
So we can kick him out of Sheffield Wednesday, and then it's up to Cogan to bring in an interim owner. Is that what you're telling me?
Not an interim owner.
An interim owner with cash.
Not an interim owner as such, but an interim expert to try and stabilise the situation and the deficiencies to which the independent regulator has identified. So if, for example, they believe that the club is not doing certain things, then they can put somebody in to do those things. And they can say that the current owner is not suitable to carry out the requirements of the licence that they're going to give the club.
Right.
But of course, the issue is going to be that in 99 out of 100 times, the case is going to be that deficiency is going to be a cash deficiency, is going to be a problem of funds and a problem of money. And ultimately, unless we're going to have the government effectively pay the players of Sheffield Wednesday, pay the football creditors and pay the staff of Sheffield Wednesday, then in itself, the football regulator is not going to be able to fix a situation such as Sheffield Wednesday. They already know that probably they need to sell the club. And there's already, John Textor has said to you, he's already had conversations like that, and he won't be the only party that's had those conversations. Multiple parties will have looked at Sheffield Wednesday. Everybody in football knows that Sheffield Wednesday could be an enormous club if it was back in the Premier League, for example, or in the upper echelons of the Championship. And in fairness to Chansiri, it was in the period after he took over. So what we often forget in these situations, and this is just for balance really, and it's similar in some ways to the Reading situation that, of course, you looked at in detail historically. The new owner came in and put a huge amount of money in. Actually, it went quite well to start with. Sheffield Wednesday almost got promotion twice via the playoffs. But unfortunately, once you invest to accelerate some of that possibility of getting back into the Premier League, if you then fail, then you've got a problem on your hands. And what starts to happen is you get the whole issue with PSR or the equivalent in the EFL. You have to start selling assets.
Yeah.
You get points penalties, and it can snowball. Now, and that's what happened with Sheffield Wednesday. But that in all likelihood is what's going to happen with a new owner if a new one can be found. The big opportunity here is, can a new owner come in, invest, and get them back up the table and then back in the Premier League? That's where the opportunity is.
Yeah. I mean, so David Cogan, Simon, it seems, can talk the talk, but he can't really walk the walk.
Depends what David Cogan is intending to do with the funding of the IFR in the longer game. In the short game, Stefan's absolutely right. The challenge is what do you do? And that ultimately, there's a callous set of thinking that maybe the best place for Sheffield Wednesday is administration, because it will clear a lot of the challenges that they've got, give them a moratorium and protection, and ultimately move the owner out of situ. And there's also a discussion which perhaps the owner needs to get his head into the game, that the IFR might be able to do that to him anyway. So whether the owner's being intransigent, whether he's being flexible, whether John Textor's playing all ends against the middle, who knows? But to suggest that ultimately Sheffield Wednesday, that it can be done. You can build a successful football club without putting it into the situation that Sheffield Wednesday's in. Ipswich Town have proven it. They've proven that after they took it over from Marcus Evans, and the fact that it had been languishing under Marcus for a long time doing Precisely nothing, that they can build a model that's properly funded, that's properly sustainable, and ultimately can achieve things and get back to the Premier League, maybe drop out again, but go again. So the interesting thing is, and my concern has always been with the IFR, is mission creep. They cannot, and neither should they attempt to, have a regulator funded with £10 million a year. It won't work. And so that means the game's going to have to pay for it because the government aren't going to.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the funding of the actual job that they're doing, but then there's the actual funding of the underlying assets that they're taking control of to some degree, or trying to find a solution for. I mean, ironically, we've got a situation where you can't actually now appoint an administrator without their approval, bizarrely. So they're actually putting in some conditions that could actually stop a resolution of these issues. But ultimately, I think with a club of the size of Sheffield Wednesday, and Chansiri's talked about how he's putting in £2 million a month historically. I'm not sure it's quite as much as that now. But the reality is, without player assets to sell, and I don't think they have any, and without a stadium to sell, which they've already sold, then you're stuck. And the regulator, not only in terms of the running costs of a regulator, which are going to be far in excess of £10 million. I mean, we've just heard in the last couple of weeks that the Premier League spent £100 million alone on legal fees over the last 2 years. So 10 million is nowhere near enough. But then the question remains, how are Sheffield Wednesday going to pay bills if the regulator gets involved in this situation that in a way that are not being dealt with by Chansiri already?
Okay. Stefan, stay with us. A lot more to get through after this. Stephen Borson in studio with Simon and myself this Tuesday morning. Stephen, of course, right across things financial in the world of football, that and a whole lot more. Stephen, we'll watch with interest then. Sheffield Wednesday fans getting in touch. Not much more we can tell them other than Mr. Cogan, the regulator, looking very closely at getting involved sooner than later in the situation as individuals, players, members of staff, members of all sorts of varieties of areas of Sheffield Wednesday remain unpaid. We'll keep across that.
Well, apparently they are going to be paid today. I mean, there was an exclusive in the Sheffield local press that said that people were going to be paid literally today. So
good news.
Yeah, you know, look, the reality is, I think the owner knows he needs a solution. I don't think the fans shouting it is.
Are they paying him with cash that he's putting in, or have they got some cash flow?
I don't know. I mean, you know, it's it seems to me that this is now the worst time of the year for cash flow for the next 2 months. So you would think that a lot of it's got to come from the owner.
Well, hopefully they do get paid, but it won't stop us from going back to Chancery and saying, what now? Last week, Tottenham announced a new £100 million capital injection. The Lewis family reiterated their long-term commitment to the club. If you're a Tottenham fan, Stephen, what should be read into this? Is this really good news? How much of that lands in the entry of Thomas Frank?
Well, so they ended the year in a cash position that needed some liquidity there. The nature of the beast is that they had obviously last season a disappointing season. They didn't have any Champions League football. They finished, I can't remember, 17th maybe.
Yeah.
But of course they did win the Europa, which compensated some of that situation. They also have spent relatively highly over the last couple of years, probably 3 years. I think Daniel Levy made a point before he left as to their net spend. Of course, when you have a net spend, the key implication is that you have a lot of football creditors that are owed money on transfers over the next period, so 2, 3, 4 years out. So, and you have limited amounts coming in. Of course, they did sell Harry Kane, but it doesn't last forever, the Harry Kane money. So they needed cash. They did a £90 million acceleration of some of the TV money. So they went to Macquarie earlier in the summer and brought forward some of the payments that will be made over this season from the Premier League, so that they will have effectively paid a small amount to bring forward that cash. And so the cash that they've then raised here is on top of that. So they've raised something like, in total, £190 million of cash. That does not mean, first of all, it's not a PSR issue. You have to separate cash from PSR earnings. But interestingly, it probably actually increases the ownership of ENIC in the club. And ironically, actually slightly increases the indirect ownership of Daniel Levy. So if you go on the Tottenham Hotspur website, you see that what must have happened is that money must have been put in at ENIC level as debt rather than equity, which means that Daniel Levy would not have needed to put his hand in his pocket initially. But what that also means is that when that money flows down into Tottenham Hotspur, they actually increase their ownership of Tottenham Hotspur, which indirectly increases the ownership of Daniel Levy's family as well. But of course, there is the debt that at some point needs to be repaid at ENIC. So,
and still we haven't heard from Daniel.
Well, I mean, Simon's obviously closer to Mr. Levy than I am.
Not a word, Simon?
No, but I haven't chased him either.
No.
Even to his own devices.
All very quiet at this time.
But I think in terms of, does this mean they've got a war chest for January? I think the short answer is no. I think this is largely to pay the bills that they've already got in place.
Right.
I think it is a sign that they will start to loosen the purse strings, particularly in terms of the wage bill. I don't think there's any way around that. I think they've probably already started that process, particularly having Champions League football.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you're going to see. I think when they talk about a change of direction and strategy in terms of the cash and the spend that the ownership are going to engage in, that really means they're going to spend probably something like £100 million per annum extra, split between wage bill and transfers. That's probably what we're looking at, and this is just the start of the cash requirement to do that. But really, it's much more about just
so it's not going
paying
to move
bills.
the dial that much.
Not really.
Our friend over in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Turki Al Sheikh, last week set the hair running. The best news I heard today is that Manchester United now in an advanced stage of completing a deal to sell to a new investor. I hope he's better than the previous owners. And then on Thursday, the day after that, Turki Al Sheikh clarified his original post by claiming he wasn't the investor he referred to in his original message, nor were any investors showing interest in Saudi Arabia. My post about Manchester United's potential sale meant one thing. The club is in advanced negotiation phase with a new investor. I'm posting this as a fan who wishes the deal to happen, though it might not necessarily happen. Where were you with all of that, Stefan?
I suspect it's not true. Not that he's lying, just that he's been misled, or Chinese whispers, or some other miscommunication. I think it's extremely unlikely that right now, given that there was an extensive process 2 years ago that ended up with Jim Ratcliffe being in situ, ended up with him paying $33 per share, ended up with drag-along rights that would necessitate an offer really over $33 in all likelihood. And of course, the position on the field and in terms of the cash requirement of the organisation has probably increased, not decreased, since the time of the sale. So I think it's very hard to believe that somebody's going to come along now and pay in excess of $33 to buy the club. Now, it's not impossible, of course, that somebody decides they want to sell some of their shares. It may turn out to be a very insignificant share sale. They do still have some listed equity on the New York Stock Exchange, so it is possible that it's something to do with that. But I think in terms of it being something more meaningful, I think very unlikely.
Okay. You know what I'm going to throw at you before you leave us? Should we expect to leave 2025, Stefan, without any further update on Manchester City and the 115?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of misleading stuff sort of seeping out onto social media. I think the simple reality is that neither party, as of the end of last week, I don't know, I know this was fairly late in the week when I had this confirmation, and it came from multiple sources, so it's definitely correct. Neither party had the decision of the panel. This is not a case where they've both had the decision and there's sort of negotiations and settlement discussions going on in the background. It's very, very simple. They have not had the decision of the panel as of yet. Now, clearly...
I mean, the independent commission hearing ended in December.
Yeah, and I think after 10 months...
What are they doing?
Well, I do think now there's no real excuse for a further delay. I mean, even if they were busy on other matters, and they will have been, then I think it would be really quite extraordinary that there's been no timetable set with them and no arrangement set with them in terms of the payment of their time over this last 10 months to produce the decision. I think on any basis, 10 months is enough to produce even a very, very detailed £400-500 a page decision on this case, and I think it is imminent. I know I have said that before multiple times in this room, but I do think that there was a very good chance that it would have come out for this international window. I think there's a very good chance it will come out in the next international window, and I really can't see it going into 2025. 2026. I just cannot see it extending beyond the year. I think it is almost out. Why it has not dropped into those inboxes as of yet, I don't know. It may well have done in the last 24 hours, but certainly as of the end of last week, it was not a case of secret discussions or secret settlement discussions.
Still considering
it's just very, very simple. They had not received the decision.
All right. We await with interest. Stefan Boston, we thank you so much. It's 11:30.
Bellamy is suggesting changing the way the handball rule is applied in the UK to get in line with how it works abroad.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe we need to do a little bit something different over here because they're not our rules. We go more common sense. I don't know where you're supposed to put your hands, but if it goes anywhere near your hands, then it's straight away a pen, which I don't believe is the way the game should be.
Wales went 1-0 up but lost 4-2 at home to Belgium. The boss says his team lost momentum after that handball penalty. The Welsh are probably looking at the World Cup playoffs after that defeat. Now, there'll be a few sore heads in Cape Verde today.
Since I was a little boy, and I know it's the same for the guys in the dressing room, since we were all little kids playing football, we dreamed of playing football at the highest stage, and there's no bigger stage than the World Cup.
That's Cape Verde and Shamrock Rovers centre-half Roberto Lopez after the island nation became the second smallest country to ever qualify for a World Cup. Meanwhile, England can book their place tonight with a win in Latvia. Thomas Tuchel is challenging Marcus Rashford to not waste his world-class talent and add more goals to his game. The boss is also asking the whole squad to leave everything out there.
We want to make our fans proud, and we want to make ourselves happy when we're in the dressing room. We want to sweat, be tired. No one has to be ashamed of being tired. It's a good thing.
Latvia England is live on talkSPORT from 7 p.m.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get ready for the golden era of sports betting. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18 plus gambleaware.org.
And we're joined by Matt Gibson from BetMGM. We're going to look at some of the top sporting events and the odds round and about them. Matt, good morning to you. Here's the thing. After comparisons with Woods and O'Sullivan yesterday, have you changed your mind, your opinion somewhat on Luke Littler after his defeat in the World Youth Championship?
Morning, lads. Thanks for bringing that one up. It was a bit of a commentator's curse, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Putting Littler in.
We didn't see it coming, did we? No.
Absolutely not. I mean, Bo Graves has actually given Littler some of his own medicine. Littler averaged higher than her in the game, 107 to 105. But Bo Graves took an 11 dart leg to beat Luke Littler in the deciding leg of the game. Interestingly, Greaves is set to accept I was reading this morning, she's set to accept a PDC card for the 26-27 season. So potentially, gents, another name to follow. Maybe not to put in the Woods O'Sullivan bracket just yet, but another name to follow in the darts world.
Okay, well, we'll let that one go, Matt. You didn't see it coming, nor did we. Last night's international football, where's your mind with it this morning at BetMGM?
Yeah, I mean, the Geordies will be happy. Nick Voltemada on target for his country. I think that's the first goal he scored for the senior team. Northern Ireland have got a little bit of a job on to qualify, but we are thinking that they'll be 6-5 for top two. They've got the Slovakians to play next, and then realistically a tap-in against Luxembourg. So that ship hasn't sailed just yet. Wales-Belgium produces loads more goals. I don't know if you saw the penalty on Ethan Ampadu, lads. I thought that was very, very, very harsh. I feel a little bit hard done by for them there. But again, they're in with a red hot chance as well, fellas. They've got Liechtenstein away, which again you think could be a bit of a tap in, and then North Macedonia at home, which will be a big game. North Macedonia, interestingly, were held by Kazakhstan last night. So Wales still in with a red hot chance of finishing in second place in that group. Interestingly, the double, fellas, if you fancy the home nations to do all right, that's Northern Ireland and Wales to finish second in their group is 3-1 for the double.
Okay. I mean, I've got a rough idea what's coming here, Simon. But I, for one, would love Northern Ireland to make it, and Wales to make it, and of course Scotland to make it as well. But would it be any great surprise if none of those nations make it to the finals next summer?
I would quite like Northern Ireland to qualify. I've always liked Northern Ireland. They don't have the sort of shouty, ungrateful feel that you lot have. So I'm always quite happy.
Shouty, ungrateful?
Yes, you know, the conversation you brought out earlier on about how England doing well would be a terrible day for you again, reminding us all why we get this effect in the studio about having a pop at the Scots. But Northern Irish, I mean, going back to watching George Best play for them, and of course Martin O'Neill, and watching Pat Jennings, and this country that produced great players that never actually seemed to get to World Cups. And obviously then you see the heroics of 1982.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
to go to your question, can I see all of the nations not qualifying? Yes, I can. I hope that's not the case, because there's nothing more enjoyable than watching one of the home nations like Scotland or Wales go to a World Cup and get sent home at the earliest possible opportunity.
I see. You like us getting there, but you
like to see
us
it get
quick
there
stuff.
absolutely smashed
Yeah.
to pieces. When,
Yeah.
Like the celebrations on the buses and the Ali McLeod mentality.
Yeah.
You know, having buses before you go to a tournament, making a big song and dance about Ali's armies on the way, and then back it comes.
Yes, okay.
So I like that. I
So you
enjoy
lot
that.
don't make a song and dance with "It's Coming Home."
No.
Oh, right, just to get that
no,
clear.
That's not the point, though, is it?
Yeah,
You
because
asked
let me tell you this, it ain't.
But you asked me the question about the home nations.
Yes.
So I'm answering it the way I want to.
And thank you for
welcome.
answering it. But you're right about. Sorry, Matt. We'll get back to you. When you mentioned players like Northern
forgot you
Ireland
were there,
used to- Northern Ireland used to have like George Best and Martin O'Neill, and you're right.
Thank you.
Way back in 1985, I think we had to qualify typically via an oceanic playoff system, and we played Australia home and away, and we got there. We got to Mexico 86, and that's when players were players, Matt. You won't remember this lot. Jim Leighton in goal, Steve Nicol, Alex McLeish, Willie Miller, Maurice Malpass, Gordon Strachan, Graham Souness.
Yes.
Morning, Graham.
Good players.
Roy Aitken, David Cooper, Kenny Dalglish, Frank McAvenny.
Good players.
Not a bad team, wasn't it?
Great players. And you have to ask yourself now why we do not see, and that's where Scottish football's got to focus on, is its youth development to bring through players that look like Graham Souness, that look like Kenny Dalglish again, because if you could do it once, you can do it again, can't you?
True. Look like them, but maybe not play like them.
Or look like them and play like them. Look like them in a football sense.
Yes.
If you're going to be pedantic and pick me up on semantics,
Thank you for
understand
that.
what I'm saying.
And here we go then. Latvia against England tonight, Matt. It's a World Cup qualifier, and it's live in talkSPORT. I mean, what odds do you give on this? Because I personally want England fans to get some value here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no value in us to just go and win the game. 1-20 for England to win, 23-2 for Latvia. I think it's bigger prices I've ever said on air, gents. 40-1 at home for the upset, Jim. So maybe your Scottish £2 will be going on Latvia this evening. But
doubtful.
Listen, I think it'll be straightforward for us, won't it? Win tonight, World Cup spot guaranteed. They're pretty much there already.
Yeah.
You beat these lot 3-0 in the last game when these two met, which I think was the first time they ever met competitively. 3-0 again is 9-2. Harry Kane's expected to return. No player in Europe's top 5 leagues has scored more in all comps than him. I think he's 18 in 10 for Bayern. We were talking about, I think, Haaland last week or the week before in his record. Harry Kane must not be forgotten and still be talked about in that league. So England to win, both teams not to score, and Kane to score first is 21-10. But all the signs lead to a pretty straightforward win for us this evening. It may not be coming home in the summer, but 3 points should be guaranteed this evening.
Oh, I think 3 points are guaranteed. But I mean, who was it? Denmark went to Belarus and won 6-0. I mean, that's the kind of territory you should be thinking in, Simon, should it not? Go to Latvia tonight. I mean, I think it's the kind of thing that Tuchel's wanting to see. A goal fest. A great performance, yeah, but a goal fest. Not just like a 0-1 or what was it against Andorra, 2-0. Yeah, he wants to see a bunch of goals. And you'd like to see that too, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I was just looking through Scotland's results against Latvia. See how you got on in the past against them. Yes, of course. A good win away will keep the momentum going. Thomas Tuchel is establishing himself now in terms of his, the resistance that was had towards some of the things, some of the way his team played against earlier teams has now dissipated. He's now getting a team focusing and functioning at a high level. So he'll want to keep it that way, won't he? So going to Latvia and nicking a 1-0 in an horrible game won't keep the momentum going. So he'll want to go there and win.
Yeah.
convincingly.
Matt, thank you very much indeed. We'll watch and hope that you fellas get some goals tonight over there in Latvia. Latest odds from BetMGM. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18 plus. GambleAware.org.
Tuesday morning, not much left of it as we head towards midday. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan. We are live on talkSPORT. International break, of course, coming to an end. And we're all quite pleased about that because it's a return of, amongst other things, the Premier League. And, of course, it throws up an absolute cracker. They're all big games, but come the weekend, Liverpool, Manchester United. Wonder if on the Monday morning we'll be talking about a whole variety of refereeing decisions from that one. One referee had to put up with a lot when Jose Mourinho got Roma to the Europa League final some years ago. It was the 2023 Europa League final, and Anthony Taylor, the Premier League referee, was in charge on that occasion. And if you remember rightly, the result went the other way. It didn't go Mourinho's favour. It went the other way, and Sevilla won that tournament and won that trophy that night in Budapest, Hungary, if I remember rightly. But then it got very ugly, did it not? Mourinho confronted Anthony Taylor in a car park afterwards and hurled all sorts of abuse at Anthony Taylor. He called Taylor a disgrace twice in a post-match news conference, as I say, before confronting him in a car park. And there was a bit of a to and fro with Simon and myself as to whether that was Mourinho who caused that impasse or whether, as Simon asserted, the media had a lot to do with it. Anthony Taylor has been talking about that time and that experience to the BBC.
That's for sure the worst situation I've dealt with in terms of abuse. Not only because I was travelling with family members at the time, but it's also highlights the impact of people's behaviour on others. There was actually no major mistakes in the game, and we're talking about because a team has lost a game. We're trying to shift focus onto for somebody to blame.
Did you think there was a link between the criticism that you received by Jose Mourinho following that match and then what happened in the airport? Do you think that has an influence inevitably on the behaviour of fans?
Yeah, I think if we're being honest, I think it does, yeah.
And if you were watching there on your TV, you saw what happened to Anthony Taylor and his wife and his daughter as they tried to board a flight to head back home after the final, and it got all very nasty. Certain Roma fans turned their attention on him, and it was now, in Taylor's words, it was pretty much fueled by Mourinho's post-match antics. I mean, it seems to settle this once and for all, Simon, that at that time, yes, we've seen great times with Mourinho as a top-class manager, and he is. Whether he still is remains to be seen. He's at Benfica now after a fairly circuitous route on the way. But that situation, in the words of Taylor, and it's interesting that Taylor has opened up about it, Taylor is saying, nah, forget the media in this instance. It was fueled by Mourinho and his antics. And someday Mourinho will need to sit down and think about it and realise, yeah, I had a lot to do with that. Not that it's particularly bothered, I'm quite sure. But would you continue to say the media had a bit to do with that?
Well, of course they did. I mean, whether Mourinho should have said what he said, and whether, first of all, are we adverse to robust discussions? Because I think that there's nothing wrong with robust discussions. And the fact that he had a robust discussion between himself and Anthony Taylor, I've seen referees in action with due respect, and I'm in the camp of protecting referees and making sure that they're given the same dispensation that everyone else is to make mistakes.
So why not on this occasion?
Because I'm going to give you some nuance to it. Because ultimately, first and foremost, robust exchanges aren't necessarily something that need to be broadcast and amplified. What do
you mean by that?
Well, broadcast and amplified. That's what I mean.
What, the situation in the car park?
Yeah, doesn't necessarily need to be carried. There's no benefit in that. Besides, it provides content. Individuals that harangued Anthony Taylor at the airport, we've got to stop giving people excuses for their own individual behaviour. Their behaviour is accountable. Mourinho may well have been ill-advised in saying certain things in a press conference, and he got consequenced for it and sanctioned for it. Because if he wants to call a referee a disgrace and has no real reason for doing it besides the fact he's lost a game, I can't remember why Mourinho called Anthony Taylor a disgrace, whether he had a point about poor decisions. Anthony Taylor's version of events, which I have no reason to disbelieve, is there was no controversial aspects of the game, and the game was well refereed. That's subjective, of course. Managers going into press conferences and calling referees a disgrace, I do not like. I have never liked. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the characterisation of the referees never being allowed to make a mistake. We've had this conversation with the referees' representatives, with Howard Webb in the studio, and per se we've had this conversation. But there is also an amplification of certain conversations that don't need to find their way in the public domain, aren't of any benefit, they aren't in the public's interest, they're just good content for media. And so, of course, media will then present them.
Hang on a second. Are you saying that the people in that car park, as Taylor tried to leave the stadium, the people, the incident with Mourinho hurling verbal abuse at Taylor,
is it necessary to be...
That was filmed on a variety of phones by people who were there, that they shouldn't do that?
Well, I'm saying...
And it shouldn't get out in the public domain?
I'm saying, in the world that we now live in, of course, that ultimately people can be self-publishers, perhaps has a slightly different feel. But the mainstream media that might have carried that content had a choice. Now, if they want
of course, and if you had the chance to film it,
we have a different view. Like you think.
Well, why would you not show it?
Well, I'll tell you if you let me answer. You have a view that when someone gets a watch robbed outside their house, we should be spending as much time describing how much the watch cost rather than the crime. That's because the journalist in you has a certain viewpoint. I don't hold that viewpoint. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm saying I don't hold it. I don't think it's necessarily of interest to me, the row between Jose Mourinho and Anthony Taylor, in the same way that certain sections of the media will see it, because all they're interested in is not the well-being of Anthony Taylor. They're interested in fact this is content, and content is king, and it drives the viewing figures, and wonderful, and away it goes. Let's not start making the media harbingers of the moral compass of doing things for the best reasons. They're only doing it because it creates an opportunity for
Who brought about that situation?
But should robust conversations...
Mourinho.
Yes, he did. So Mourinho's got to take some responsibility for it. I'm not suggesting in any shape or form, because it would be ludicrous to do so, that Mourinho isn't complicit in some of the outcomes because he shouldn't have had the conversation. But also, all parties are complicit in allowing a bunch of overhyped imbeciles at an airport to harangue a referee based upon Mourinho's outbursts in press conferences, the amplification of a confrontation in a car park, and all of these things were a contributing factor to that rabble abusing Anthony Taylor. It might have been wiser for Anthony Taylor not to have flown with his family and had to go through an airport. I'm not suggesting he shouldn't be able to do that, but the circumstances are the circumstances, so all things in the round should have been considered. But of course Mourinho's part of it. Of course they have to take responsibility for it. So did the individuals that decided to wreak the abuse upon Anthony Taylor.
Of course.
So let's not excuse them. Anthony Taylor saying, well, it's because of Mourinho.
But you spent a long time, though, saying that this was brought about by the media.
No, I said...
not Mourinho.
I said... No, of course I didn't say it wasn't brought about Mourinho.
You did. I think you sat in the show and you said it was by and large brought on by the media.
No, I said in part it was brought upon by the media because...
That the media whipped it up.
And I think they did.
And I think that's absolute balderdash. They whipped up nothing.
Because you're a journalist.
They covered the events.
Because you think it's important to cover certain things and I don't. Like I just gave you an example. I remember the Dele Alli argument that you and I had on many years ago.
Oh, you can go back to that. But here's the thing.
But there's a reason why
there's a bunch of people in that car park. And there's a bunch...
You might not like that.
There's a bunch of... No, I'll explain it to you.
Okay.
There's a bunch of people in that car park. And there's a television crew over there. There's a television crew here. And I'm with my TV crew, or I'm with talkSPORT or whatever. And Mourinho goes off in one publicly and starts screaming abuse at Anthony Taylor and his officials.
Should the TV cameras cover it?
Correct.
Okay, to answer your question, in your world, yes. The cause
in my world, if you don't get that, you haven't done your job.
Of course, but your world is a different world to the world that I like to live in.
No, it's a real world.
No, it's the world that you inhabit. It's a version.
What if you don't get it?
Right. Well, because then you miss out. Of course, you mustn't be. You've got to be first rather than right.
No.
And of course,
you have to get the concept.
And the consequences of it.
It's happening right in front of you.
But do you accept then that if it wasn't public knowledge, if the two component parts, let's accept the fact that Mourinho shouldn't do it. The second part is if the media don't show it and run it dawn till dusk every 5 minutes, right? Then there might not have been quite the visibility of it.
Don't be ridiculous. Why would the media not show it?
No, that's not the point I'm making.
On what basis?
That's not the point I'm making. You're talking.
Why did Mourinho do what he did in that public situation?
We've covered that, right? But what you're refusing to accept because it doesn't seem to sit with you because you doesn't want it to. If it wasn't shown to the public, then you wouldn't have had the reaction from the public.
Why would you cover it up?
I'm not suggesting that you do cover it up.
Why on earth would it not be shown to the public?
I'm suggesting that the consequences of it being shown are twofold. Mourinho shouldn't have done it.
Correct.
And the consequences of showing it is it whip people up. And you don't just show it in a certain light with context and nuance and actually all of the different facets.
What's the context and nuance?
I don't know, and neither do you because you weren't there.
What's the nuance of Mourinho belling off at Anthony
People
Taylor?
have robust exchanges all the time.
No.
Yes, they do, Jim, and damn well you know it, right? The fact of the matter is,
we've heard from Anthony Taylor.
I've had robust exchanges with referees. And some of them can be sort of jumped up little jackasses that are beyond any kind of scrutiny. So if you don't show certain things, I know that the news world thinks it's got a God-given entitlement to have visibility and access to everything. Yes, you bloody well do. Yes, you do.
Not at all.
So my argument is Mourinho doesn't do it, no story. If the news doesn't show it repeatedly, endlessly, amp it up, jack it up, turn it into the Third World War.
Show it once. It's the same as showing it once.
Oh, please.
This is what happened earlier on
show it once.
in the car park of the stadium.
Please. Oh, that's what
and then people get a rough idea. But what happened?
Is that what they did then?
All the Roma fans found out that Mourinho's seething with Anthony Taylor. And then the tragic part of this, and the hugely embarrassing part from Mourinho's point of view, and to a certain extent yours, because of this ridiculous argument that Bush,
the one you don't like,
is that Anthony Taylor and his wife and daughter came in for some extremely nasty abuse.
Yes.
That might have got very nasty. As a result, his wife and daughter no longer travel to games.
But they also, the other side of the equation in this conversation is that people have to take responsibility for their behaviour. So if Jose Mourinho told all those fans to jump off a building, I'm not sure they would have done that either, would they? And he didn't ask them to go and harangue a referee. They took that decision themselves.
Oh, did they?
He is allowed, by the way, we are allowed to live in a world where people have confrontations.
Mm-hmm.
We are allowed to live in a world where that is not whipped up into something.
We're having
ultimately
one right now,
is
which I'm quite enjoying.
That's fine
because you've fallen on your sword.
Because well, that's your view, but we have a different view on things, and I think I can make a structured, reasonable argument as to why I disagree with you. But I also understand the principle that if Mourinho hadn't done it in the first place, then there wouldn't be a story to run.
What do you think Jose's motivation was? Why did he not go into the referee's room in private and have it out with Taylor?
I have no idea.
That would have been more logical, wouldn't it?
I have no idea.
The reason was he knew there were cameras on him, and that's why he went after Taylor publicly.
But then you'd have to ask Jose that. But maybe the opportunity didn't present himself because maybe given the sectioning of the stadium at that particular time, given it was a UEFA final, he might not have had the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
Who the hell knows? And only Jose Mourinho does. But you cannot deny that the visibility of it also helped whip up. And if you don't think it did, then you don't.
So the pile-on at the airport, finally, and one final chance, who is to blame for it? Mourinho or the media?
I think it's a sum of all its parts.
And with that, it's 12 noon.
talkSPORT Sports Update powered by the Nissan Van Range. Score a winning hat-trick of performance, payload and price. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
With your latest sports headlines, I'm Matt Hutchinson. David Coote has pleaded guilty to making an indecent image of a child. The charge against the former Premier League referee is linked to a video found by Nottinghamshire police in February. He was sacked as a professional match official in December for unrelated reasons. Elsewhere this Tuesday lunchtime, is the sky the limit for Elliot Anderson? Adrian Durham certainly thinks so.
Tuchel's described him as the full package, and he absolutely is. See, we've all been thinking, oh, Adam Wharton's got to get in. We haven't got a Rodri-style midfielder. Tuchel has made it clear. He made it clear to us last summer. He wants a Rodri-style midfielder. He sees Elliot Anderson as that man.
And with England's midfield functioning better over the past couple of games, we're told one man may struggle to get back in.
I honestly think there's a part of Tuchel doesn't want to start Jude Bellingham. He's come in and there is something quite clearly that he doesn't like about Jude Bellingham. I think Thomas Tuchel will want this to work. He will want them to go and win well tonight.
The Daily Mail's Craig Hope speaking there. Well, you can hear England in Latvia live on talkSPORT from 7 tonight. Now, Northern Ireland are licking their wounds after a tough 1-0 loss to Germany, but Michael O'Neill is still hopeful they can make the World Cup via the playoffs.
Certainly the last two games are massive games for us to play for, and hopefully we can have something to play for in March.
And more grassroots refs will be getting body hams to stop abuse that follows a successful trial over the past couple of seasons.
talkSPORT News.
Local authorities in Gaza say 6 people have been killed by Israel's military, and price rises in the shops are speeding up. More from the news team at past.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. Whatever the weather, our range of services is longer than the queue at the Chippy on a Friday night. Tyres, MOTs, brakes and more. Book today at quickfit.com.
Sadly, we're expecting plenty of cloud this afternoon with spots of drizzle possible in some eastern areas, but some sunny spells are forecast up in Scotland.
Good afternoon, everybody. 6 minutes past 12 noon. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan. We are live in talkSPORT. You can watch the show as well as listen to it. It is everywhere these days, and we are delighted about that. Samsung, Fire TV, Apple TV, even Prime Video. Wherever you want to watch us, you can do that, and many of you are doing that today, and I'm delighted about that. I'm also delighted about the fact that domestic football returns this weekend, not least because Scotland have played 2-1-2, and we all move on. England will win against Latvia tonight, probably. Nothing surer. But anyway, domestic football is back. Friday night, we're back with the Championship. And of course, it's a cracker. Friday evening, Middlesbrough against Ipswich. It's live on talkSPORT 2. Coventry top the shop in the Championship at the moment. Frank's doing a great job with Coventry City. Unbeaten in 9. We'll see how Ipswich carry on. They've played 8, they've won 3, but draws have been their problem. 4 of them. So where are they going at this precise time? With life back in the Championship. I am delighted to say joining us live is Ipswich chairman Mark Ashton. Mark, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. Good of you to join us. You're looking forward to going to Middlesbrough on Friday, as I say, live in talkSPORT 2. How has it been back in the Championship for you? And am I right in thinking that draws have been the problem thus far, albeit we're still in October?
Yeah, I think you've summarised that really well. The welcome back to the Championship has been what we expected, extremely tough. It's one of the toughest and best divisions in the world for a reason. I think anyone beats anyone on a given day. There's never much between the sides, and the start has been tough, albeit we've started to gain momentum in recent weeks.
Is it tricky, Mark, to adapt from underdogs last year in the top flight to suddenly everyone's favourites this year?
Yeah, it's a good point. We go from the, 2 years back-to-back promotions where we were the hunters, promotion to the Premier League, relegation back. That certainly leaves some scars that we need to work through. And then you're the hunted all of a sudden. So it is a big mental shift. And again, I go back to it. It's a great division, and it's tough.
I'll bet it is. The way it's set up, the parachute payments that are available to you, is it failure if you don't come straight back up?
I wouldn't deem it as failure. I think you start the season. I've never started a season at any football club where promotion wasn't the game. And, we're very clearly set on what we want to build. We want to build a club for the long term. A lot of good things going on here, a lot of infrastructure projects being built. We're still in essence, year 4 into the project where we're rebuilding the club. but ultimately promotion is the absolute aim.
Simon, you know a good coach, a good head coach, a good manager when you see one, and in Kieran McKenna, you think these fellas have got the right guy.
I think they've got the right setup, full stop, in Ipswich. I think they've got a very good chief executive chairman in Mark. I think they've got a very good manager. I think they've got a very good framework. I think they're coming alive again. Look at their recent results. It's not easy getting relegated and then coming straight back up again. It's not as easy as people think it is. Statistically and financially, the odds are in your favour. But I remember getting relegated in 2004 with Palace and having a side that I expected, an England striker that I wouldn't sell. And we didn't start the season the way I expected us to. We lost the first game of the season, ironically, to Luton. And I remember saying to the players when we'd lost to Charlton, got relegated in the last game of the season, take it out on the first team we play next year. Up come Luton from League One and beat us in the first game of the season at Selhurst Park. It's not easy, but if you look at Ipswich's form, and this is a great yardstick coming into the Middlesbrough game because Middlesbrough are top of the league.
Yeah.
But Ipswich are in good form. They're ninth in the league. They've got 13 points. Quite frankly, if I was in their shoes, I'd like to have a slightly better start, but I was still taking this because they're poised with the squad, with the manager, with their experiences, with their chief executive and chairman they've got, to be in position to be right amongst the teams challenging for automatic promotion, or certainly at the very worst case scenario, playoffs, and I think they'll get one of the two.
I mean, Mark, Simon's made a point. You seem to be a happy lot. You enjoy working with each other. Hence, Kieran McKenna getting himself a new 4-year deal last year. He's very much part of your long-term vision for this club.
Absolutely. I think Simon's nailed it spot on there. You know, for me, culture beats talent, hands down, every day of the week. We have a good culture at the football club. We're not perfect, but we work hard. Everyone is clear on the vision, the values, and how we operate. The lines of communication are crystal clear. Kieran knows his role and responsibilities. I know mine. We never clash on that because we talk all the time. And I think that helps when you're not only dealing with the immediate future, but you're planning for the future as well. The effectiveness of that communication is really key. We have outstanding owners who know the rules of engagement. They leave management to get on and run the football club unencumbered. And I think that gives us a real opportunity.
Mark, do you look on with a bit of envy about how the three who went up this time around have made a bit of a fist of it? Because that is what you lot would have liked to have done, isn't it? In an ideal world.
Yeah, I think absolutely so. I think the biggest challenge we faced was 20 years outside the top flight, only 1 year in the championship. So you just couldn't build the infrastructure quickly enough. And ultimately, we weren't good enough. We couldn't build that quickly enough once we got to the Premier League. The next time we get there, the training ground will be complete. Recruitment has been enhanced. Staffing has been enhanced. The whole club has moved forward. Again, revenues have increased, which gives us a better platform to try and be more competitive. It's the best league in the world for a reason. It's brutal. And I said at the start of the interview, it does leave some scars when you come back down that you need to work through. Our challenge hasn't been recruiting players. It's been retaining the best ones because clubs want your players. Some of those have played out in the press, the likes of Amari Hutchinson to Nottingham Forest for the best part of 40 million, to Lap to Chelsea, Broadhead to Wrexham for 10 million. You know, we've sold well. We bought in £80 million worth of revenue. We bought some players. That's part of our model. But that readjustment back to the championship, as Simon's just said, does take a little bit of time. And I'd like to feel that we've now just come through that.
We had Stefan Boschen in studio a short time ago, Martin. Simon and I were in discussion with him about the Sheffield Wednesday situation. The regulator is up and running. David Cogan has called for collaboration from all involved. Do you think everyone will work towards that, Mark?
I think like personal views aside now, because the regulator's here.
Let's get your personal view, Mark.
Well, listen, the regulator's here ultimately because football couldn't do a deal for football. And that disappoints and saddens me. But we are where we are. The regulator has a role to play. The regulator is not going to go away. But I think the clubs, and I think it's important that it is the clubs engaged with the regulator, because this is a very, and again, Simon will understand this having run clubs, we are very multi-dimensional organisations, and there are a lot of intricacies in running these organisations. So I think it's important the regulator listens. I think the boundaries for the regulator have got to be set really clear, because regulatory creep does worry me. And we need to help the regulator understand the nuances of the game. And ultimately, there are things that will be very positive that I think they bring. None of us wants to see clubs in distress.
Yeah.
But also, I don't want to see any form of controls that prevent growth by the regulator. And I think that's key to the industry.
And what came out of our discussion with Stefan is, even although Kogan might get involved in the Sheffield Wednesday situation, Simon, he might not be able to help those at the club themselves get round this obstacle that they've encountered.
Sure. I mean, ultimately, the big thing for Chansiri is to have it a sort of focus in his mind that something's got to be given, and the regulator has potentially the powers to put him in play. The interesting thing that Mark will be aware of and understand is the funding of the regulator doesn't make sense. So where's the funding going to come from? And it's going to come from the clubs, and that's the concern that football should be worried about, not just the mission creep, which is a big thing. I'm worried about it, and I don't think the regulators should be anywhere near the Premier League, anywhere near it. But the distribution mechanism is what the regulator's looking at and how that's going to happen. And he's even touched upon it himself, Kogan. He's even touched upon the thing that I wonder where he got it from, the idea that the next round of broadcasting deals may not produce the outcomes that people think they're going to produce, and football may not have quite the broadcasting rights that it once had, certainly from the Skies of the world. But look, I mean, I think you can read between the lines what Mark's response to the regulator is. I think most of the serious football clubs, with all due respect to the ones further down the pyramid, don't really see the value of a regulator beyond perhaps some form of redistribution. But David Kogan is not a fool. He's not a foolish man. And so he'll work his way through whether he's doing this for a peerage or whether there is going to be some serious taxes on football that enable a regulator to fund itself. Because on £10 million a year, you cannot administrate 72 football clubs as a regulator.
Mark, interested to get your reaction to the comments recently, and we'll finish at this, from the Birmingham co-owner Tom Wagner last week, suggesting the EFL needs to grow itself rather than take from the Premier League, this filtering down of money for the clubs below the Premier League. And Wagner was against that. What was your take on it?
Well, as someone who's been in this football industry for probably over 30, 40 years now, compared to someone who's been in it 2 minutes, I think, we have to respect the pyramid. And when you compare us with the likes of US sports, is the one thing that we have is jeopardy. And that's one of the things that drives the broadcast deal, promotion and relegation. And I think the big clubs, the Premier League does have a responsibility to the whole pyramid. Once you take away that competition nature, that, you can start in non-league and you can go right the way through to the Premier League, you take away the essence of our game. So there's a balance in there. I think there is a responsibility for the EFL to grow. And if you look at the commercial deals that the EFL have done in recent years, Rick and his team have done a great job. Really have, and that's recognised by the Premier League. But also, I think there is, and it is time for a new deal for football to make sure that money flows through. The world has changed since when that deal was originally done. But I think there's a balance there between the Premier League and the EFL's continued passion to grow itself.
Okay, Mark, we wish you well on Friday night against Middlesbrough. Thanks so much for joining us. Ipswich Town, of course, going pretty well at the moment. Maybe not as well as you wanted. As I said, there have been too many draws in there. But it's early days yet, Simon. I reckon, Mark, come the turn of the year, is that when you get a clear focus of where you may or may not be going? Come the crucial months, April, May.
I think you look at where you may or may not be going after 10 or 12 games in the Championship. And if you look at their recent results, they've won the Tractor Derby, haven't they, against Norwich?
Yeah.
Bristol City are another contending side. They've beaten Portsmouth. They've smashed Sheffield United. So their results have gone the right way in the last 5 games. And that's the momentum that they're building. So to be 9th in the table on 13 points, if they continue that trajectory, they'll be in the playoffs. I would imagine that Mark and his team are not aiming for the playoffs. They're aiming for automatic promotion. And they're not detached from that. They're not miles away from that. So it's not as if there's a done deal. And the Championship is such a league that is, so brutal at times and so separating the men from the boys, for want of a better expression, that I would expect Ipswich to be right in amongst it.
Well, they'll do themselves a big favour if they can go to Middlesbrough and win on Friday night. And you'll hear that live on talkSPORT too. is Tuesday lunchtime, and it's Jim White and Simon Jordan live on talkSPORT. Great having you along. Thanks so much for Mark Ashton, Chairman, Chief Exec of Ipswich Town. We wish them well.
There's a good Chief Executive.
Yeah.
There is a good Chief Executive. He's up there, that's sort of the same sort of Chief Executive as Paul Barber.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Good stuff. We wish them well. Eyebrows were raised when FIFA President Gianni Infantino was present at the inauguration of Donald Trump at the start of the year. Yesterday, where was he? He pops up in Egypt at the signing of the Israel-Gaza peace deal. The bold Infantino then posted on Instagram late yesterday, President Donald J. Trump definitely deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for his decisive actions. What we're seeing here, Simon, is Infantino merely now a frustrated politician in disguise.
There's a huge tournament called the World Cup being played in America. There was a huge load of background noise about Israel, potentially with various countries around the world, Spain and a few others putting their two penneth in about how they felt that they were likely to boycott this World Cup. So whilst I disagree fundamentally with the principles of sport and politics interacting the way that it does, it does. I've always been against it and I always want to discourage the principle of it. But I'm not silly. I know that the geopolitics of the world and the way that sport is being utilised ever more, whether you go back to the 1936 Olympics, whether you go to 1968, or whether you go to 1972 with the circumstances in Munich with the Israeli athletes, or whether you go to the world that we live in now, it is the reality of it. And Infantino presides over a very influential sports organisation, as opaque and as lack of transparent as it is. So I'm not surprised to see him in that position.
But
specifically,
sport's the key word there, though, isn't it?
You're singing to the choir with me on this. That I don't want it, but it is an inevitability, and even more so given that the World Cup is in America, and given the fact that the situation that Trump has just resolved, much to the chagrin of all those people with Donald Trump.
Well, we'll see. Time will tell if he's resolved it or not.
Resistant,
but nobody can now say no more One Love armbands. We're not having that. No human rights messaging. Oh, yes, you are. Why? Because Infantino got right behind Trump and showed up at the signing of the peace deal in Egypt.
You can separate the man from the organisation and the field from the politics. My argument has always been footballers can run around whichever political persuasion they want. No one's got an issue with that. They didn't give up their right for freedom of speech by being a footballer.
So did Infantino show up yesterday as an individual or as FIFA president?
Well, I think they probably are not mutually exclusive, because Gianni Infantino is in a position where he's the General Secretary of FIFA, and he wouldn't be in Donald Trump's company if he wasn't in that position, and there wouldn't be probably a reason for him to be there if the World Cup wasn't in America, and there probably wouldn't be in a position for him to be there if the World Cup wasn't in America. And Israel, given that they're at the centre of this conflict, were being potentially suggested to be removed from the competition.
But you're with me on this, that now they can never suggest to fans, players or teams that political, human rights messaging and agendas will no longer be tolerated.
Why would I be?
Because they will.
Well, first of all,
they will.
What tolerated by whom?
Well, it'd be hugely hypocritical of Infantino to say no to that political message and a definite no to that one, having pitched up at Egypt, giving it the thumbs up to the peace deal.
Okay, but I'm not sure that's a political message. That's a celebration of a moment in time.
What's he doing there?
Well, again, it's a celebration of a circumstance in the world's overall affairs. So
what's it got to do with FIFA?
Well, nothing really.
No.
But that's got nothing to do with the argument that we're making about whether you should have poppies or LGBT flags or take the knee on a football pitch. No one's suggesting that these things can't be popularised and supported by footballers, but I do think and would prefer the football field to be a place of neutrality. And circumstances change. So yes, of course you're right. Is there a necessity? Is it right? Does it fall into the characteristics of the points I've made previously? Do I want Infantino there? No, I don't. So I don't disagree with the principles, but I don't think one affords an opportunity for the other. UEFA have a set of principles. They're quite happy to tell you that they can tell you which causes they want to support, but if the fans, the great unwashed, go on the terraces and make a point about which particular cause they want to support, then their clubs are sanctioned. So the world is beset with hypocrisy and double standards. But it doesn't alter my central premise that really and truly we don't really want people using sport as a precursor to every single agenda they may foist. People's circumstances in the world changes, so all of a sudden what you think you were lighting upon, we saw this with all these clowns that decided that they felt it was appropriate to stick BLM badges on their shirts, including broadcasters like Sky that reversed that a bit as quick as they possibly could when they realised that actually, whilst the statement in itself was valuable, the people behind it and the principles behind it and the ideals behind the organisation that were being funded as a result of it were very bad.
Where do you think Infantino is taking the image of FIFA at this particular time?
Well, okay, from where it started to where it is now, do you think, as a layman like me in terms of the affairs of FIFA, do you think, given all that we now know about FIFA, from the awarding of the World Cup in 1978 to the situation with Sepp Blatter, do we think they're better or worse? I think probably they're slightly better. Do we think that FIFA officials being dragged out by the FBI and subpoenaed?
There's time yet,
and there may well be.
Yeah.
And we still have the same opaqueness, but we still have organisations that are watching them and producing great big reports about what FIFA do and don't do. And there's still concerns. But the Charles Warners of the world that once upon a time resided and bestrode, and the Chip Blitzers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or Chuck Blazers. Chuck Blazers.
Chick Blitzer.
I know you know what I meant.
Yeah.
But the fact is that there still will always remain this concern about FIFA because they are opaque. And Infantino pops up. We saw him in Qatar with his allegiances, with people like Salt Bay on the pitch cutting a swathe literally, and all that sort of stuff. But that's power and influence, and sport power and influence go hand in glove.
Should we quietly admire where Infantino has managed to get himself?
I suppose we could.
Yeah.
If we didn't. If we agreed with the premise of how he operates a lot of the time, you have to say that there is an element of that the opportunity that sport presents itself. Anyone capable of fronting, and Seferin's an influential character, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
To get in that position,
try to be
in that position, you have to say they've got something about them.
Oh, he doesn't miss an opportunity, does he? I mean, the paint's hardly dry in the Israel-Gaza peace deal, and his President Donald J. Trump definitely deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for his decisive actions. He'll need to wait a bit. That lady in Venezuela won it, didn't she? 12:30.
Common sense. I don't know where you're supposed to put your hands, but if it goes anywhere near your hands, then it's straight away a pen, which I don't believe is the way the game should be.
Wales went 1-0 up but lost 4-2 at home to Belgium. The boss says his team lost momentum after that handball penalty. The Welsh are probably looking at the World Cup playoffs after that defeat. Now, there'll be a few sore heads in Cape Verde today.
Since I was a little boy, and I know it's the same for the guys in the dressing room, since we were all little kids playing football, we dreamed of playing football at the highest stage, and there's no bigger stage than the World Cup.
That's Cape Verde and Shamrock Rovers centre-half Roberto Lopez after the island nation became the second smallest country to ever qualify for a World Cup. Meanwhile, England can book their place tonight with a win in Latvia. Thomas Tuchel is challenging Marcus Rashford to not waste his world-class talent and add more goals to his game. The boss is also asking the whole squad to leave everything out there.
We want to make our fans proud, and we want to make ourselves happy when we're in the dressing room. We want to sweat, be tired. No one has to be ashamed of being tired. It's a good thing.
Latvia England is live on talkSPORT from 7 p.m.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Sign up now at dazn.com/boxing.
Well, this Friday, Kieran Conway puts his British and Commonwealth middleweight titles on the line against undefeated George Liddard at York Hall. You can watch this live Friday night only on DAZN. York Hall. It's got this. I've got this thought in my mind, Simon. This is a great venue.
It's the beating, pulsating heart of British boxing, because it comes with this earthy substance behind it. You know, the Copper Box. You know, York Hall, those sort of places.
Yeah. In the world of tennis, of course, these days, when you look at the men's game, people like Yannick Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz seem to dominate proceedings. I mean, Djokovic is still around as well. And we're pretty much pinning our hopes on the likes of Jack Draper. Jack Draper, the British #1, has enlisted a new coach, Jamie Delgado. And I'm hoping that Jack really goes places in this sport, because we like him and we like the way he goes about it. I wonder what Jamie thinks. A tie-up between Jamie Delgado and Jack Draper. Let's ask him. Jamie Delgado, good afternoon. How did it come about, Jamie?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me, guys.
Good to see you.
Thank you. It's super exciting to start off with, and really looking forward. Obviously, he got in touch with me some weeks ago now, and look, I think from my side, it was a great opportunity to work with such a young British talent and someone who's aiming to get to the top and has big goals, and yeah, I was super motivated and excited to help him.
It sounds good. I mean, Jamie, you were by the side of Andy Murray for much of his success, becoming his principal coach in 2016. Has Draper got all the ability to go on and achieve maybe close to what Murray did in the sport?
Yeah, I mean, they're two different players. They play slightly differently, but in terms of the look, I mean, one thing that stands out from Jack, he's obviously an exceptional player, but his mentality is really impressive. He's someone who's really hungry. He's willing to do everything required to get to the top. And it's different eras as well, right? I mean, Andy was playing in an era with arguably some of the best players of all time. You know, he was in a really difficult decade of tennis where you had Federer, Djokovic, Nadal. You had some unbelievable players behind them as well. right now we're seeing two guys at the top of the game, Carlos and Yannick, who are at the moment clearly above the rest. So it's in terms of that, there was a tournament last week in Shanghai. I don't know if you saw, there was two sort of regular tour guys in the final. It's a big opportunity in tennis, I think, to have some big results. So, yeah, I'm pumped.
Good man. The man to my left is Simon Jordan, a gentleman I think you know. Jamie, does this set your heart beating a bit faster that Jamie's teamed up with Draper?
Jamie's a good coach, and Jack's a very good player. I'm interested to see from Jamie, because I remember asking Jamie about 5 years ago what he thought of Jack Draper, and he was very complimentary about him. I felt that the player had huge opportunities waiting for him. So it's really interesting that Jamie's landed with him. But what is the remit, Jamie? What is the brief? I mean, we've seen Jack kick on in the last 18 months and operate, A, with a level of fitness that previously evaded him, but B, with more consistency. A little bit of a disappointment in Wimbledon. But what's the remit here, Jamie?
Look, it's to push and to beat the top guys in the biggest tournaments, right? Jack's already showed that he beat Alcaraz this year in Indian Wells, and I think I think he's got a game to beat those guys. He has. He's got. I think there's a couple of things in his game that he could add, a bit of variation and a couple of extra bits that could close the gap and beat them. But yeah, ultimately is to win the biggest titles, and that's the way his head's at. He's aiming for the best. He wants to beat the best, and that obviously as a coach is super motivating for me as well. So absolutely to be at the top of the game and challenging for the biggest titles.
Has he got the game, both mentally and literally, to be able to beat the Sinners and Alcarazes of the world?
Yeah, I do. I think he does. He's got a super powerful game. His serve is excellent. He's obviously a left-hander, which gives these guys a little bit more, just makes life a bit more awkward for them. I think his mentality is excellent. He's obviously had his injury problems in the last few years. When that dried up, as you kind of touched on, in the last 18 months, he got to number 4 in the world, and he's been injured again now since Wimbledon. But look, yeah, he's got the game, he's got the power. Couple of things that could be added in to make that final step, but he's definitely got it for sure.
At that level, Jamie, I often wonder how much is it having the right mentality. Obviously, you got to be super fit, agile, the whole lot, but so much of it is in the mind, isn't it?
I think it is in any sport, isn't it? At the highest level, Jack's an exceptional player, but there are other exceptional players as well. It's getting tougher. The physicality is getting tougher. I think that there's no real weaknesses at the top of the men's game now. Look, it does. A lot of it does come down to the mind, how aggressive you can be in certain situations, how you deal with defeat, how the sacrifice you make away from the court. There's a lot of that lifestyle decisions that can make the difference at the highest level, and I believe he's got that.
Jamie, I mean, when you look, and you and I have discussed this in the past previously, and it's interesting, Jack's background is his father was Roger Draper, involved with the LTA at a significant level. How do you view the state of British tennis and its pathway? We see these shining lights come through every now and again and hit certain levels. And I spoke to Andy's brother, Jamie, about British tennis, and he was very, it's not good enough, there's not enough things going on, not enough development. When you look at the coaching frameworks and the development of British players, how do you feel we're progressing?
Look, I actually think I saw something yesterday, which was the first time in a long time. I think we've got 8 players in the top 200, which is, you could argue we need more and we want more. I think that's pretty clear to say, but it's actually the most we've had, I think, in 20, 30 years. So that's a positive. I think on the junior side, there should be more kids coming through, to be honest. I think especially on the boys' side, we've got some exceptional girl players at the moment, 16, 17 years old, that we've got a big... we're sort of hanging our hats on a little bit, but on the boys' side, it's a bit thin. Look, I'm not totally involved in the LTA and their structure of how to the pathway, if you like, for the kids, but I think on the senior side of the game, I think we're doing reasonably well. I feel.
What's the biggest, Jimmy? What's the biggest barrier, if there is a barrier, to bringing someone through to go from that level to the super level, like Alcaraz and Sinner and the rest?
From the juniors?
Right from the word go, yeah.
I think it's the coaching is huge. You need to have some coaches who've got the experiences. having that experience of that transition from juniors to seniors is a big step. I was actually a really good junior back in the day many years ago, and I didn't quite make that step up. You do need experienced coaches that know what it takes on the tour, and I don't think in the past we've always had the best coaches in the right places. It's very different coaching a kid 10 years old when you're giving them the basics, the technical skills, and then at the higher end of the game to give them that little extra bit to win the big matches. Is different. I think we've got good coaches. It's just putting them in the right places, which hasn't always been the best.
What kind of coach are you, Jamie? Obviously, we see coaches becoming integral parts of the framework of a player, whether it's back in the day with Bjorn Borg or whether it's in more recent times with Ivan Lendl or Boris Becker appearing in various camps. You've been with Andy. What kind of coach are you, and what are you going to bring to Jack?
I think my experience as a coach in the last 12 years has been at the higher end of the game, not so much on the technical side of let's say, if you're coaching a 10, 11-year-old to give their initial technique, but at the top end of the game, those tactical little differences that can, in mid-match, now that we're allowed coaching, I feel I'm good at sensing a situation, sensing a player's strengths and weaknesses. Looking at Jack's game, I feel I'm pretty clear already, having watched him closely anyway, but videos and just seeing certain areas that could give him that little extra edge. So I think it's more the tactical side, the strategy side, and also that the communication, I think, is a huge part of coaching. And I feel I've done that pretty well with my previous players. It's not so much the knowledge that it's how you talk to the player, how do you get them to buy into it, how do they buy into you? And I think that's where I've done a good job so far.
Good man. You think of Andy Murray, and he had to break the likes of Nadal and Federer and Djokovic to get to where he wanted to get to, Jimmy. Do you think Jack can break the likes of Sinner and Alcaraz on a semi-regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the goal, that's the challenge, and can he do it? I think he can do it. Yeah, he's got the power. I think he can add a little bit more variation at times in his game, especially against someone like Sinner, who's rock solid from the baseline. These guys are so good from the back of the court if you're just playing them at their game. And part of my job is to find the areas of where Jack can hurt him. How can he put Yannick in difficult positions, and obviously practice those so that he can do those under pressure in the biggest moments. But yes, he's got it. He moves great for a big guy. He's got good power, and I think he's got the tools.
Jimmy, just a final one before you leave us, and thanks for being with us this lunchtime. Federer, and when he talks tennis, we kind of sit up and listen. He recently claimed that tournament organisers are deliberately producing slower courts in order to favour the playing styles of Alcaraz and Sinner. Was there anything in that?
I've actually felt that way a little bit for a while, to be honest. I don't know if I would necessarily direct that at tournament directors. I mean, possibly, but I have sort of seen over the last decade or so that courts are more one-paced. Whether you're playing on a clay court or on a grass court, you don't have to make the differences in your game that back in Ivan Lendl's day or I personally like the olden style where you do have to adapt to quick surfaces, slow surfaces, high bouncing, low bouncing. You see the skill level of a player. Someone like Federer could adapt to that easily. I personally liked it because you got more people winning the Grand Slams and they would become big personalities in tennis. And it has become a little bit on the slower side, and it does favour those guys, especially over 5 sets. It's very difficult to beat a Yannick Sinner or a Novak Djokovic on a slower court. If you brought it down to 3 sets, make the match shorter. I'm not suggesting that because I do actually like the 5 sets, but it's really difficult to beat them in from week to week. I personally like the change, so I kind of agree with him, to be honest.
Okay, before we go, you're a Manchester United fan, Jimmy. So who's going to win a major tournament next? United under Amorim or Jack Draper under Jamie Delgado?
I'm going to go for Jack Draper.
There you go.
It's tricky. It's tricky times as a United fan. I don't know what you guys think, but look, I'm supporting them. It's tough. But no, I'm going to go with my safer Jack Draper bet.
Brilliant. The problem is, Jimmy, when Jack Draper wins Wimbledon, as he will, we never hear from the head coach. When Kane scores a winner at Wembley, we hear from Tuchel and Kane. We need to hear from you guys as well.
100%. Honestly, that's something that some of the Grand Slams, Wimbledon, Australian Open actually do a good job. And you're totally right. I think the coach is clearly much more relevant in sport and in football and other sports than tennis. we get forgotten about sometimes, but we do work hard.
No, you won't be forgotten by ours, Mr. Delgado. Not a chance of it. Thanks so much for joining us, Jamie.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Did you ever knocked up in a tennis court with Mr. Delgado? You go back a bit of a way, don't you?
No. One of my best friend's sons worked with Jamie. And had some time with him at Wimbledon and a few other places.
Good coach.
He's an excellent coach.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, he's a Man United fan. He's based in the south, isn't he?
We're coming up to 10 to 1.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. For the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in branch or view online at selcobw.com.
Let's pick out, before we leave you today at 1 o'clock, who's been the real deal this week with Selco Builders Warehouse. We'll straight into the England squad in a second, but first off, surely Jack Wilshere has got to be showing up here. He's been part of the real deal. He stepped up and says, yeah, a job in management, I'll take that. Luton Town, League One, and Jack's now in charge. he was asked about, well, Jack, yeah, that's good that you've got the job, but what about your perceived inexperience at this level?
Yeah, well, I'm sure Gary can answer this better than me, but whenever he hires a manager, there's probably an element of risk. You know, I made it pretty clear to Gary and all the staff here, which I think is important because it does feel like a family, and you know, Gary wasn't the only one who needed convincing. It was a real unity in the staff that I felt. But I think, you know, my experience as a player, you know, I've thought about this a lot when people ask about experience. I think very important, Chris Powell will be next to me, but also my experience of being in top environments, high pressure environments, since I was 16 really. You know, I think that experience is very beneficial. Of course, there's different challenges, and I've had really good experience of coaching so far, and I've had some tough experiences as well. So there'll be many more new experiences, but I think the most important thing is, am I ready for this? Yes. Am I ambitious? Yes. Do I want to achieve great things with Luton, get back to the championships and really make that clear? Yes. And I feel like I'm ready.
How well did he speak there? I know you like him a lot.
I do, and I had a mixed emotion to doing the upfront with Jack, because I had a perception of him. You know, you saw him leaning over balconies when he was an Arsenal player and all that sort of stuff, and you forget that they're just young kids getting carried away with moments. So I was very impressed with Jack in the way that he spoke, and the frankness of his views, and the preparedness to engage in a different conversation than I anticipated he would have wanted to have done. And I think he's got a chance. I think he's absolutely right, and I said it to him last night in a couple of text messages we exchanged. I think Chris Powell is a really good appointment, because I think behind most younger managers is somebody with a little bit more experience that enables them to freely express their managerial ideas, but steers them away from some of the shark pits where you'll find yourself as a young manager you're inexperienced in. And Chris Powell is a good coach.
Yeah.
He's been around. Yeah. And is a good lad, Chris. So I think it's a very sensible appointment. It's a bit like when Dougie Friedman first went into management, he took Lenny Lawrence with him. And Lenny Lawrence obviously was a manager, and Chris has done some management stuff as well, but predominantly Chris has been a number two. Yeah. And I think it's a very good balance. And Jack is studious, thoughtful, grown up, mature, and I think he has a chance. It won't be easy for him, and it shouldn't be easy. But I think he's got a really good chance. And Gary Sweet's a sensible CEO, isn't he? Yeah. So Luton, you know, have fallen through the divisions, but I think Jack's got a really good chance. I really do.
Well, when it comes to the real deal, you would have to think that England tonight over in Latvia will prove to be the real deal, up against Latvia, 137th in the world. And if we're going to carry on the real deal theme, maybe Jordan Pickford has picked up on that, because he says under Tuchel, togetherness is the watchword.
The competition's always been there. I can only speak on the 4 tournaments I've been at now, and there's always competition. There's always going to be lads who come through, then there's going to be upsets for people who don't go. But that's part of being an England player, and part of being probably as any nation who represent the country. There's always going to be them upsets, and yeah, I think the togetherness has always been good, and it's something the manager's really striving for us to keep improving, because he knows that side of the game, you get that right and everything falls into place.
Having said that, Simon, is togetherness anything new?
Well, you're in a team, so it's like stating the bleeding obvious, isn't it? I mean, ultimately, if you have,
that was a big thing under Southgate.
Well, the big thing under Southgate was bringing an alignment back with the relationship with the media, with the British public, where they felt that there was accessibility, that there was a constant theme of communication, and there was management. And of course, the team produced better outcomes. If they could have had all this togetherness, if they hadn't have won football matches, there wouldn't have been a togetherness to support them, would there?
On a regular basis, though, when Tuchel speaks, I listen, because he proves himself, I think, to be the real deal in his own way. He was talking about Marcus Rashford. And I love these little bombs, if you like, that he drops, these little nuggets. On Rashford, he can be one of the best in the world because of the quality I see in training, the finishing with both legs and with the head. He's explosive, he's fast, he's strong in the air. So where are the limits? There are no limits, but his numbers don't reach the potential. I like that. So it's over to you, Marcus.
Yeah, I mean, it's factual. I mean, I think Thomas Tuchel is now asserting himself into the role. I don't think he's in a popularity contest, and he probably subscribes to the view there's two kinds of people in this world, popular people and successful people. It's amazing how popular you become when you're successful. So he would want his team to be mirroring the outlook that he has, which is be bold, call it for what it is, and perform when it comes. And it's evident. I mean, I don't subscribe to the view, not that I should have to be listened to, that Marcus Rashford is a world-class footballer. I think he's a good footballer. And his numbers are his numbers. And his numbers are not just over a year, they're over a 10-year period now, aren't they? Or certainly seven or 8 years. So with that in mind, if he thinks he's a world beater, fine, let's go prove it. Let's go get some world beating numbers, because world beating is what Erling Haaland looks like, not what Marcus Rashford looks like.
Oof. Okay, The Real Deal with Selco Builders Warehouse. For the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in branch or view online at selcobw.com. It is 1 o'clock. Shall we return tomorrow at 10?
With Danny Murphy?
Why not? We're both there, making an appointment tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. Simon, myself and Danny Murphy, live on talkSPORT.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's Real Deals at selcobw.com.